Beneath the golden sands of Egypt lies a world frozen in time, a world that still refuses to surrender all its secrets. We marvel at the towering pyramids, the colossal statues, the intricate tombs carved deep into the earth. Yet the closer we look, the more the mysteries deepen. How did a civilization over 4,000 years ago engineer feats we struggle to replicate even today? What ancient knowledge, now lost to history, once guided their hands? Whispers of hidden chambers, unknown technologies, and cryptic symbols hint at answers we have yet to uncover. Was it merely human ingenuity, or something far stranger? Tonight, we step beyond the textbooks. We wander into the forgotten corridors and silent ruins where science falters and mystery reigns. So sit back, relax, and let's journey into the heart of ancient Egypt's most baffling enigmas. Mysteries that even today, the modern world cannot explain. Along the windswept shores where the Nile surrenders itself to the Mediterranean Sea, a city once stood as the crown jewel of the ancient world, Alexandria. Here, marble columns gleamed beneath the sun, towering temples paid tribute to forgotten gods, and the great lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, guided travelers from distant lands. It was a place of knowledge, of power, and of secrets. And somewhere amidst these ruins, buried beneath layers of history and earth, may lie one of the greatest lost treasures of antiquity, the tomb of Queen Cleopatra. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, has captured imaginations for centuries. Regal, brilliant, and enigmatic, she shaped the fate of empires through diplomacy, warfare, and legend. Her life has been meticulously chronicled, debated, and romanticized. But her final resting place remains a ghost on the horizon of our knowledge, a question mark carved into the sands of time. Historical accounts, such as those of Plutarch, suggest that Cleopatra was laid to rest beside her lover, the Roman general Mark Antony, after both took their own lives in 30 BC. It is said that Octavian, the future Augustus, allowed their burial together, honoring Cleopatra's last request. But beyond these brief mentions, history falls silent. No tomb has ever been definitively found. No stone inscription has ever confirmed the location where Egypt's last queen found her eternal sleep. Many believe that Cleopatra's tomb lies somewhere near Alexandria itself, perhaps hidden under the modern city, where centuries of construction have buried the ancient landscape beyond reach. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and the slow sinking of the land have transformed the coastline, submerging entire districts beneath the waters. Could her tomb now lie lost beneath the waves, entombed in a drowned quarter of the once great city? Recent excavations have stirred both hope and more questions. Just outside Alexandria, at a temple site known as Taposiris Magna, archaeologists have uncovered clues that hint tantalizingly at a royal burial. Hidden passageways, Greco-Egyptian statues, gilded artifacts, and even mummies with golden tongues have emerged from the sands. Some scholars suggest that Cleopatra, blending Egyptian and Greek traditions, may have chosen such a sacred and remote location for her tomb, a final act of symbolic union between two worlds. But definitive proof remains elusive. No inscription, no artifact bearing her unmistakable name has yet been uncovered. Could it be that Cleopatra's tomb was deliberately hidden, that it was constructed in secrecy, designed to protect her legacy from Roman desecration? Or perhaps it was destroyed during one of the many calamities that befell Alexandria: earthquakes, fires, invasions, erasing all trace of her from the physical world, leaving only the legends behind. Fringe theories reach even further. Some propose that Cleopatra's tomb may not be in Egypt at all, that during the chaos of Rome's conquest, loyal followers spirited her body away to a hidden sanctuary far from prying eyes. Others speculate that Cleopatra, known for her deep understanding of religious rites and symbology, might have orchestrated a burial steeped in mystery, designed to align with celestial events, sacred landscapes, or forgotten deities. Yet amidst all the theories and excavations, the sands of Egypt remain stubbornly silent. No glint of royal gold, no weathered sarcophagus, no faded hieroglyph has risen to tell us where Cleopatra truly lies. We are left instead with echoes, the words of ancient historians, the crumbled stones of forgotten temples, the currents of the sea whispering secrets we can barely hear. And so the question endures: where is Cleopatra? Is her tomb hidden in a submerged quarter of ancient Alexandria, waiting for technology to advance enough to find her beneath the sea? Does she lie somewhere inland, beneath forgotten ruins still sleeping under the desert sun? Or has time claimed her so completely that only her story, not her remains, will survive the ages? The sands shift, the waters rise, and the memory of Egypt's last queen drifts ever further into mystery. Perhaps one day, a chance discovery will pierce the veil. Or perhaps Cleopatra herself intended it this way, to become not just a queen of history, but a queen of legend, forever beyond the reach of time. As we move deeper into the labyrinth of Egypt's enigmas, another story waits, one where wonder and fear are forever intertwined. Beneath the relentless heat of the Valley of the Kings, the earth itself seems to guard its secrets jealously. Jagged cliffs loom above, their surfaces bleached by centuries of merciless sun and shifting winds. In the hollows and crevices of this desolate place, ancient tombs lie hidden, the final homes of pharaohs who once ruled with divine authority. It was here, in 1922, that British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered a doorway lost to time, sealed by forgotten hands over 3,000 years ago. Behind that doorway, a discovery awaited, one that would ignite the world's imagination and awaken whispers of something far more chilling: a curse. The tomb of Tutankhamun, the boy king of Egypt's 18th dynasty, was remarkably intact, a miracle in a valley long plundered by grave robbers. Golden statues, alabaster vases, richly embroidered linens, and a sarcophagus unlike any seen before lay untouched in the dim, stale air. It was a window into a world long vanished, a glimpse of royal splendor preserved against all odds. But from the moment the tomb was opened, strange events began to unfold. The first to stir the imagination was the death of Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier. Just months after the tomb's opening, Carnarvon died suddenly in Cairo, from an infected mosquito bite that turned septic. On the night of his death, according to reports, the lights across the city flickered and went out. Back at Carnarvon's home in England, his beloved dog let out a mournful howl and dropped dead. Newspapers, eager for sensation, seized upon the tale, and soon the idea of a pharaoh's curse was born. Yet Carnarvon's death was only the beginning. Over the following years, several individuals connected to the tomb's excavation died under unusual or sudden circumstances. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who X-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, succumbed to a mysterious illness. George J. Gould, a wealthy visitor to the tomb, developed a fever after his visit and died soon after. Arthur Mace, a key member of Carter's team, fell gravely ill and never recovered. Was it coincidence? Exposure to ancient bacteria or fungi sealed in the tomb for millennia? Or something more intangible? Modern science offers rational explanations. Studies have shown that long-sealed environments, especially ancient tombs, can harbor dangerous pathogens, molds, bacteria, even airborne toxins. The ancient Egyptians used organic materials in their burial rites: resins, oils, linens, all of which, decaying in the sealed tomb's stagnant air, could have created hazardous conditions over time. Inhaling these invisible threats might have weakened immune systems, leading to deadly infections. Still, many deaths associated with Tutankhamun's tomb occurred years after the initial discovery, and some key individuals, including Howard Carter himself, lived long lives unaffected by any apparent curse. Carter died peacefully over 16 years after opening the tomb, casting doubt on the idea of a consistent or supernatural cause. Yet the idea of the curse persists, fueled not only by early 20th century media, but by the Egyptian mindset itself. To the ancients, death was not the end, but a passage to a complex afterlife filled with trials, protections, and threats. Magical spells, incantations, and curses were inscribed on tomb walls and funerary objects, intended to shield the deceased from intruders and to warn the living of dire consequences should they dare to violate the sanctity of the grave. Although no explicit curse inscription was found at the entrance to Tutankhamun's tomb, ancient Egyptians often placed protective curses in less obvious places, inscribed within amulets, woven into funerary spells, or whispered into the tomb's very construction. Could it be that the boy king's protectors crafted a defense unseen, a net of spiritual safeguards still potent after thousands of years? Others propose subtler forces at work. Some speculate that human emotion itself, awe, guilt, fear, might have created a kind of psychosomatic effect, weakening the health of those who believe themselves cursed. The mind, after all, can be as powerful an agent as any toxin. More fringe theories stretch into the realm of the extraordinary. Could the ancients have possessed a forgotten knowledge, a mastery of energies or fields unknown to modern science? Could they have embedded protections within the architecture of the tomb itself, energies that remain dormant until disturbed? Such ideas, though lacking concrete evidence, continue to captivate those who feel that science does not yet have all the answers. Amid all these questions, the tomb of Tutankhamun still exerts an undeniable pull. Its artifacts, now housed largely in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and soon to be displayed at the Grand Egyptian Museum, shine with a brilliance that transcends time. Yet something of the tomb's original atmosphere, that thick, charged stillness, that invisible weight of countless years, remains a mystery no exhibit can reproduce. When we gaze upon the golden mask of Tutankhamun, serene, immortal, gazing out from eternity, we are left to wonder. Was it the ambition of modern explorers that awakened something best left undisturbed? Or are the tales of the curse nothing more than the echoes of our own fears, projected onto a civilization we still struggle to comprehend? The sands of Egypt are silent, but the legends born from them continue to whisper, inviting us to question where the boundary between fact and myth truly lies. As the echoes of Tutankhamun's so-called curse still linger in the imagination, another enigma begins to stir, one that leads us deeper into the tomb itself, into spaces that may have remained unseen for over 3,000 years. The tomb of Tutankhamun, though filled with treasures beyond imagination, has always posed a quiet puzzle. Compared to the grandeur afforded to other pharaohs, his final resting place feels strangely modest, a series of tight, awkward chambers, rather than the vast complexes carved for rulers before him. The paintings on the walls, though vibrant, seem hastily executed, their brushstrokes hurried, their symbolism compressed. Was this tomb truly meant for a king? Or is there something more hidden just beyond the walls we can see? Buried deep in the limestone cliffs of the Valley of the Kings, Tutankhamun's tomb, officially designated KV62, was discovered in a near-miraculous state of preservation. Yet, as scholars pored over its layout and construction, inconsistencies emerged. The orientation of the burial chamber, the incomplete decoration, the unusual arrangement of artifacts, All suggest that this tomb was not originally intended for a pharaoh of his standing. It raises a tantalizing possibility that Tutankhamun was interred hastily in a space not meant for him, and that perhaps, hidden just beyond, lies a far greater secret. In 2015, a theory was proposed that reignited global fascination. British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves, studying high-resolution scans of the tomb's walls, noticed faint lines beneath the painted surfaces, traces that could indicate the presence of hidden doorways, sealed and concealed by artisans over 30 centuries ago. Reeves suggested that behind these walls might lie another chamber, or even another tomb entirely, and not just any tomb. Reeves posited that the missing burial place of Queen Nefertiti, one of Egypt's most enigmatic and powerful figures, could lie hidden behind the northern wall of Tutankhamun's burial chamber. Nefertiti, queen, co-regent, perhaps even pharaoh in her own right, vanished from historical records under mysterious circumstances. Her burial site has never been conclusively identified. Could it be that her tomb, built with all the splendor due a ruler, was repurposed after her death to accommodate the young, ill-fated Tutankhamun? The possibility electrified the archaeological world. Scans of the tomb using radar and thermal imaging seemed to reveal anomalies, cold spots, density shifts that hinted at voids behind the walls. Yet despite several years of study, results have been conflicting. Some surveys appeared to support the existence of hidden chambers. Others dismissed the anomalies as natural variations in the bedrock. Doubts began to creep in. Could the radar echoes be artifacts of the scanning process itself? Could the apparent outlines of doors be merely illusions, tricks of the eye heightened by the power of suggestion? Despite the uncertainty, the idea persists, fueled by the stubborn absence of definitive answers. Even among skeptics, the theory has forced a re-evaluation of Tutankhamun's tomb. Why was it so small, so incomplete, so atypical for a pharaoh? Why do the paintings in the burial chamber depict rituals usually reserved for queens rather than kings? Why do certain stylistic features match the period of Nefertiti's reign more closely than that of Tutankhamun's? If hidden chambers do exist, what lies within them? Undisturbed rooms filled with treasures lost to history? The mummified remains of one of Egypt's greatest rulers? Or perhaps nothing at all? Just empty space, its mystery born more from human hope than ancient design. More speculative ideas venture even further. Some propose that the ancient builders, aware of the political upheaval surrounding Akhenaten's religious revolution and Nefertiti's sudden disappearance, deliberately concealed her tomb, either to protect her memory or to erase it. Others suggest that secret burial chambers were a feature of royal tombs all along, intended to mislead robbers and ensure the sanctity of the pharaoh's true resting place. There is also the question of whether we should disturb whatever lies beyond. In the ancient Egyptian worldview, the tomb was not simply a resting place for the dead. It was a sacred machine for rebirth, a carefully calibrated structure designed to ensure the soul's journey into the afterlife. To breach a wall might not only risk the physical integrity of the tomb, but also disrupt the spiritual balance the ancients so meticulously sought to maintain. And yet, the pull of the unknown remains powerful. The idea that, hidden just beyond a painted wall, we might find a secret untouched since the days of the pharaohs, stirs a longing that is hard to resist. To imagine that behind the stone and pigment, behind the centuries of silence, a forgotten queen might still be waiting, her story unfinished, her legacy concealed in the darkness. The tomb of Tutankhamun has already given us so much, wonders beyond imagining, and mysteries that endure to this day. But it may yet hold one final secret, sealed in the bedrock of time, daring us to find it, or to leave it undisturbed. As we stand before these ancient walls, we are left to wonder, Does the past still guard secrets we are not yet ready to uncover? And if so, what dreams, what stories, what revelations might still sleep behind the stone, waiting for the right moment, or the right hands, to awaken them? As we leave behind the sealed chambers of Tutankhamun's tomb, the path leads us back to the open desert, where another enigma rises against the horizon, silent yet unmistakable in its defiance of simple explanation. In the vast, sun-scorched sands of Dashur, south of Cairo, stands a monument unlike any other. Alone amid the empty landscape, the bent pyramid looms, its limestone casing still largely intact, glowing faintly under the unrelenting Egyptian sun. At first glance, it appears familiar, a testament to the ambitions of ancient kings. Yet, look closer, and something feels undeniably strange. Unlike the smooth, straight sides of other pyramids, the bent pyramid changes its angle abruptly halfway up. From its base, it rises steeply. Then, almost as if caught in a moment of hesitation, its slope softens dramatically, tapering toward the sky with an entirely different geometry. It is a structure frozen between two intentions, an architectural riddle written in stone. Commissioned by Pharaoh Sneferu, founder of Egypt's 4th dynasty, around 2600 BC, the bent pyramid represents one of humanity's earliest and boldest experiments in monumental architecture. It stands not only as a reflection of the Old Kingdom's soaring ambitions, but also as a reminder of its uncertainties. Yet, even today, more than 4,000 years later, scholars remain divided on the question: why does the bent pyramid bend? One widely accepted theory suggests a change born of necessity rather than design. As the pyramid's original angle, an aggressive 54 degrees, rose higher, structural stresses became dangerously apparent. Cracks and instability may have forced the builders to adapt mid-construction, reducing the angle to a gentler 43 degrees to avoid catastrophic collapse. In this version of events, the bent pyramid is a testament to ancient engineers' ingenuity and pragmatism, a solution to a problem no one had encountered before. But if that were the entire story, why does the bent pyramid display such careful planning in other respects? Unlike later pyramids, much of its polished outer casing still clings to its surface, suggesting that great care was taken in its completion. The internal corridors and chambers are complex and carefully aligned. Two separate entrances lead into the structure, a rare feature among Egyptian pyramids, each descending into distinct burial chambers. Such deliberate design choices seem at odds with the idea of a hurried correction. Could it be, then, that the bent pyramid's unusual shape was intentional from the beginning? Some propose that it reflects an early attempt to mimic a transitional form, a bridge between the earlier step pyramids and the true pyramids that would later dominate Giza. Others suggest more symbolic motives. The change in angle could represent a merging of earthly and divine realms, a literal architectural gesture toward the heavens. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, duality was a powerful concept: life and death, chaos and order, earth and sky. Perhaps the pyramid's strange form embodies that philosophy, an eternal tension carved in stone. More speculative theories reach even further. Some have suggested that the bent pyramid served as a kind of cosmic marker, its angles aligned not merely with practical concerns, but with celestial events, tracking the stars, solstices, or hidden cosmic patterns now lost to modern understanding. Could it be that Sneferu's architects were not merely building monuments for the dead, but also crafting great machines for interacting with the heavens? Others point to the peculiarities inside the pyramid itself. Two burial chambers, offset and strangely disconnected. Passages that seem to lead nowhere. Enigmatic niches and sealed spaces whose purposes remain unclear. Was the bent pyramid perhaps a testing ground, not just for architectural techniques, but for sacred rituals whose full meanings have long since faded from human memory? Even today, exploration continues. In recent years, non-invasive scanning technologies have revealed anomalies within the structure, hidden voids, potential corridors, unexplained density changes. Yet, without invasive excavation, which Egyptian authorities are reluctant to allow for fear of damaging the fragile monument, these mysteries remain just beyond reach. Ghostly suggestions glimpsed through stone. And then there is the broader context to consider. Sneferu, determined to perfect the pyramid form, went on to commission at least 2 other pyramids, including the Red Pyramid, just a few kilometers away, often regarded as Egypt's first successful true pyramid. Was the Bent Pyramid an abandoned experiment, a stepping stone to greater achievements? Or was it intended to stand forever as it does, strange, unique, and filled with meaning we can only guess at? The desert offers no answers. The Bent Pyramid stands in silence, battered by centuries of wind and sand, yet still defiant, still whole. Its odd angles catch the light differently depending on the hour, sometimes casting long, sharp shadows across the plain, sometimes glowing with a soft, otherworldly radiance as the sun dips low. When we look upon it, we are left with questions. Questions about ambition and failure, about design and accident, about symbolism and science. Questions about a civilization that mastered stone and sky alike, yet still left riddles we struggle to solve. Was the Bent Pyramid merely a mistake made elegant, a pragmatic response to the limits of ancient engineering? Or does its shape conceal an ancient knowledge, a message left to whisper through the ages, waiting for those who know how to listen? As the sun sinks lower over the Egyptian desert, casting long shadows over ancient stone, we turn our gaze away from the sands and toward the sea. Off the modern coast of Alexandria, beneath the shimmering blue waters of the Mediterranean, lies a city swallowed by time. A place once so powerful, so vital to Egypt's connection with the wider world, that it was said no foreigner could set foot on Egyptian soil without first passing through its gates. Today, it lies silent and broken beneath the waves, its story only partially recovered from the silt and darkness. This is Thonis Herakleion, the city the world forgot. In antiquity, it was known by 2 names, Thonis to the Egyptians, Herakleion to the Greeks. A bustling port city, a gateway between the Nile and the Mediterranean, it thrived around the 8th century BC, serving as Egypt's primary hub for trade and religious devotion. Here, towering temples honored the gods, especially Khonsu and the Greek Heracles, whose legendary footsteps, it was said, once touched this sacred ground. Merchant ships from across the ancient world docked in its harbors, unloading goods, treasures, and stories, weaving Thonis Herakleion into the complex fabric of Mediterranean civilization. But then, without clear warning, it vanished. For centuries, its existence lingered only in myths and fragments. Ancient writers spoke of a magnificent city lost to catastrophe, but no trace could be found. Maps shifted, memory faded. Some questioned whether Thonis Herakleion had ever existed at all. That is, until 2000, when French underwater archaeologist Frank Goudio and his team, using advanced sonar scanning, stumbled upon anomalies on the seabed near Abu Qir Bay. What they discovered stunned the world. Colossal statues, fallen columns, shattered temples, and the remains of a grand city, preserved beneath layers of sediment. The ruins of Thonis Herakleion revealed themselves slowly. Massive stone blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, lay scattered across the sea floor. A colossal statue of the god Hapi, lord of the Nile's bounty, emerged from the gloom, his features still hauntingly serene after centuries underwater. Sphinxes, hieroglyphic inscriptions, ritual objects, and even ancient ships were found, frozen in time. Together, they told a story of grandeur and sudden loss. But why did Thonis Heraklion disappear? Geological studies suggest that the city was built atop unstable ground, a complex network of clay and sand, weakened by rising sea levels and earthquakes. Over time, the land would have gradually liquefied, a phenomenon known as soil liquefaction, causing entire structures to sink without warning. Rising waters, combined with natural disasters and shifting political powers, sealed the city's fate. Yet questions remain. Some aspects of the city's sudden disappearance resist easy explanation. Why are some statues found lying so far from their original locations, almost as if they had been hurled by some violent force? Was the collapse truly gradual, or was there a cataclysmic event, an earthquake, a tsunami, that delivered a final, fatal blow? Speculative theories point to even broader causes. Some suggest that Thonis Heraklion's fall was tied to the decline of the late dynastic periods of Egypt, when political fragmentation and foreign invasions left once thriving cities vulnerable to neglect and ruin. Others propose that religious changes, the shifting dominance of gods and temples, weakened the city's spiritual importance, hastening its abandonment even before the sea reclaimed it. And then there are the more mythic whispers that Thonis Heraklion, like Atlantis, is a warning, a symbol of hubris punished, of civilizations rising too high and falling too fast, swallowed by forces beyond their control. In the silence beneath the waves, these echoes seem to linger. The artifacts recovered from Thonis Heraklion hint at an extraordinary fusion of cultures. Greek and Egyptian iconography entwine on steles and statues. Inscriptions record complex legal decrees, trade agreements, and religious ceremonies that blended traditions from both worlds. The city, it seems, was a place of convergence, of peoples, of gods, of ideas, a living testament to the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. Today, much of Thonis Heraklion remains unexplored. Thick layers of silt continue to conceal structures and treasures, preserving them in the cold darkness. Excavations are painstakingly slow, limited by technology, funding, and the need to protect fragile relics from sudden exposure after centuries of underwater slumber. Each artifact retrieved raises new questions about daily life, about governance, about ritual practices, about the very nature of cultural identity in the ancient Mediterranean. Standing on the shores of Abukir Bay, it is almost impossible to imagine the thriving, colorful streets that once lay beneath the waves. Markets crowded with traders from Cyprus, Phoenicia, and Greece. Priests carrying sacred relics through grand processions. Sailors offering prayers to Hapi for safe passage up the Nile. All of it gone, yet not entirely lost. As we gaze across the waters where Thonis Heraklion once stood proud, we are left to wonder, what other stories sleep beneath the sea, waiting to be unearthed? What pieces of human history lie just beyond our reach, preserved in the silence of the deep? The answers, perhaps, are still down there. In the sand-choked ruins, in the silent statues, in the shattered vessels resting on the seabed, waiting for the careful hand, the patient eye, and the relentless curiosity of those who refuse to let the past stay forgotten. As we leave the submerged streets of Thonis Heraklion behind, we turn now to the high sands and barren cliffs of Middle Egypt, to a story not of lost cities, but of a lost king. At the edge of the eastern desert, the sun blazes down upon the desolate ruins of Amarna, the city of dreams built by Pharaoh Akhenaten. Here, far from the traditional power centers of Thebes, he carved a new capital from the empty plain, a place dedicated not to Amun or the pantheon of old gods, but to the Aten, the radiant sun disk. It was a revolution unlike anything Egypt had seen before. But just as suddenly as it rose, Akhenaten's vision collapsed. His city fell into ruin. His memory was erased from monuments and king lists. And somewhere within the echoes of this downfall lies a question that continues to haunt historians. How did Akhenaten die? Akhenaten, who ruled from around 1353 to 1336 BC, remains one of ancient Egypt's most controversial figures. His religious reforms shattered centuries of tradition, sweeping away the vast pantheon in favor of a singular, abstract god, the Aten. He abolished the old priesthoods, moved the capital, and transformed the very language of Egyptian art and devotion. In the eyes of many, he was either a visionary prophet or a heretic who destabilized the foundations of an empire. Historical records offer only fragments about his final days. No clear account describes his death. No grand burial has been conclusively identified. Instead, there is a void, a silence that seems almost deliberate. Some scholars propose that Akhenaten died naturally, perhaps weakened by illness. Artistic depictions of him, with an elongated face, narrow chest, and wide hips, have led to speculation about possible medical conditions, Marfan syndrome, Froelich's syndrome, or other genetic disorders. If true, he may have suffered from chronic health issues that shortened his life. Yet the ancient artists who portrayed Akhenaten so strikingly also operated within a symbolic tradition. The king's unconventional appearance may not reflect physical deformity, but rather spiritual ideals, an attempt to depict him as embodying both male and female aspects, mirroring the Aten's all-encompassing nature. In this view, the strange features are not medical evidence, but theological expression. Without a clear cause of death, other theories arise. Some suggest political intrigue. By the later years of Akhenaten's reign, dissent was growing. The economic and spiritual upheaval he unleashed would have created enemies, among priests, among generals, even among the royal family. Was he quietly overthrown, his death masked by the chaos of succession? Evidence hints at a troubled transition. After Akhenaten's death, a shadowy figure known as Smenkhkare briefly occupied the throne, followed by the young Tutankhamun, who would systematically dismantle Akhenaten's legacy. Temples to Aten were destroyed. Images of Akhenaten were defaced. His name was scrubbed from history. Such a thorough campaign suggests more than simple neglect. It hints at deliberate condemnation. Yet no definitive signs of assassination or forced abdication survive. The sands of Amarna bury their secrets well. The question of Akhenaten's tomb deepens the mystery further. A royal tomb was constructed in the cliffs east of Amarna, echoing the grand style of the Valley of the Kings. In its shattered chambers, fragments of burial equipment and inscriptions have been found. But no royal mummy was ever securely identified there. Some believe Akhenaten's body was moved during the backlash against his reign, perhaps hidden, perhaps destroyed to obliterate his memory entirely. Others suggest he may have been buried elsewhere, in Thebes, or even in a still undiscovered tomb, waiting silently beneath the desert sands. In 2010, a tantalizing discovery rekindled hope. DNA studies conducted on a group of royal mummies from the famous tomb KV55 in the Valley of the Kings suggested that one badly damaged mummy, long speculated to belong to Akhenaten, shared a genetic link with Tutankhamun, believed to be his son. The physical evidence pointed to a man in his mid-30s, consistent with Akhenaten's presumed age at death. But the identification remains controversial, clouded by the fragmentary condition of the remains and the turbulent history of the 18th dynasty. Even the records left by Akhenaten himself offer little clarity. In his final years, inscriptions become scarce. Images of the royal family suggest shifts in power dynamics, with Nefertiti, his powerful queen, perhaps rising to unprecedented authority, or vanishing from the record altogether. Was Akhenaten's grip weakening? Was the dream of the Aten already unraveling before his death? Speculative theories, fueled by the scarcity of facts, go even further. Some suggest that Akhenaten's experiment with monotheism set him at odds not only with Egypt's elites, but with the very spirit of the land, a cosmic imbalance that demanded correction. Others point to curious parallels between Akhenaten's theology and later religious traditions, suggesting that his beliefs echoed far beyond his lifetime in ways we are only beginning to understand. Still others wonder whether Akhenaten, in breaking with the old gods, unleashed forces he could not control and paid the ultimate price. Today, the ruins of Amarna remain eerily silent. The broken stones of once grand temples lie scattered across the plain. Desert winds whistle through abandoned streets. Statues of Akhenaten, their faces smashed or worn away, stare blankly into eternity. In this emptiness, his presence lingers, elusive, haunting, unfinished. We are left with fragments, a city abandoned, a dynasty disrupted, a name nearly erased, and a death that remains shrouded in uncertainty. Did Akhenaten die peacefully, his dream intact but doomed to fail? Or was he swept aside by forces greater than his revolutionary vision could withstand? The sands have kept their secret for more than 3,000 years. Perhaps somewhere beneath the desert's endless horizon, the final chapter of Akhenaten's story still waits to be uncovered. As the memory of Akhenaten's lost tomb fades into the desert wind, another figure, one far removed in time, yet equally shrouded in mystery, draws our attention. Far from his native Macedonia, under the fierce sun of Egypt, Alexander the Great once walked as a living god. His conquests stretched across 3 continents, and in life, he commanded the loyalty of empires. Yet, in death, his greatest monument has remained maddeningly elusive, the location of his final resting place. According to ancient sources, Alexander died in 323 BC, under strange and contested circumstances, in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II, in Babylon. His body, legend holds, was placed in a magnificent gold sarcophagus, transported slowly toward Macedonia for burial. But somewhere along the journey, history took a different turn. The general Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted commanders, diverted the funeral procession. Instead of carrying the fallen king home, he brought Alexander's body to Egypt, to be entombed in the land where the young conqueror had been declared the son of Amun, the living link between mortals and gods. It is said that Ptolemy placed Alexander's remains in Memphis, then later moved them to Alexandria, the glittering new city that bore his name. There, a magnificent tomb, the Soma, or possibly the Sema, was constructed to house the fallen king. For centuries, Alexander's tomb was among the greatest pilgrimage sites in the ancient world. Roman emperors, including Julius Caesar and Augustus, made the journey to gaze upon his embalmed body. And then, it vanished. The accounts grow quieter. Fewer references appear. The physical tomb, once famed for its grandeur, fades from records. By the early centuries AD, its location had slipped into obscurity. War, natural disaster, the rise of new religions, and the relentless transformation of Alexandria buried the site beneath layers of history, or erased it altogether. What happened to Alexander's tomb? And where might it be now? Archaeologists and historians have sought it for centuries, following whispers through crumbling manuscripts, excavating in forgotten corners of Alexandria, chasing visions half recalled in medieval travelers' tales. Some believe it lies hidden beneath the modern city, perhaps under the dense streets of Alexandria's historic core, trapped beneath mosques, churches, or ancient ruins yet to be unearthed. Others point to catastrophic earthquakes that ravaged Alexandria, particularly in the 4th and 8th centuries AD. Did the tomb crumble into ruin and slip unnoticed into the shifting sands? Was it destroyed during religious upheaval, as Christianity replaced the old traditions and the memory of pagan kings was deliberately erased? There are more speculative suggestions still. Some argue that Alexander's remains were moved in antiquity to protect them, perhaps hidden beneath the Serapeum, the grand temple of Serapis, perhaps even smuggled away to an unknown tomb, deep within the Egyptian desert or the Nile Delta. A few even suggest that his body, revered for centuries, was mistaken for that of a saint and enshrined in a Christian church, its true identity lost in the mists of time. Fragments of evidence tantalize but refuse to cohere. A marble fragment found in Alexandria, bearing the name Alexander. Ancient references to a glass tomb, a crystal or transparent coffin through which visitors could still see the conqueror's face. Medieval texts hinting at the prophet's tomb in Alexandria, revered though unnamed. But none of these traces have yet led to a definitive discovery. In recent decades, renewed excavations in Alexandria's submerged ruins and in sites like Qom el-Dika and the ancient royal quarter have reignited hope. Underwater archaeology has revealed entire districts lost to the sea, theaters, palaces, temples, drowned by earthquakes and rising tides. Could Alexander's tomb still slumber beneath the waves, waiting for patient hands and advancing technology to find it? Yet every discovery seems to raise more questions. Was the tomb plundered, its golden sarcophagus melted down and sold in the chaos of empire's collapse? Was it hidden deliberately, sealed away by those who feared its symbolic power? Or does it remain intact, perfectly preserved, in a forgotten chamber somewhere beneath Alexandria's modern streets, just beyond the reach of our understanding? Alexander's own myth complicates the search. In life, he blurred the line between man and God. In death, his tomb may have become as much a legend as a physical place, a shrine built as much from memory as from stone. The more we seek it, the more it seems to recede, becoming a mirror of his own ambition, vast, unknowable, immortal. Today, the city of Alexandria pulses with life, layered with centuries of history: Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Islamic, modern. Somewhere beneath the tangled alleys and ancient foundations, the dust of one of history's greatest figures may still lie undisturbed. Or perhaps his body, like his empire, has scattered into countless fragments, becoming part of the land he once ruled. The question endures, as sharp and elusive as ever. Where is Alexander the Great? And if his tomb were found, if his remains could be touched once more, what new mysteries might they reveal about the man who dared to dream beyond the edge of the known world? The waters rise, the city grows, the past waits in silence. And we, like so many before us, are left to wonder: is the final chapter of Alexander's story still hidden beneath our feet? Or has it already been lost to the ages? As we leave behind the shifting sands of Alexander's lost tomb, our path leads back to the Giza Plateau, where familiar giants loom, and yet, hidden beneath their shadows, lie mysteries as profound as the pyramids themselves. In the clear light of early morning, the pyramids of Giza seem almost eternal, rising with quiet defiance against the slow creep of time. Their massive stones cast sharp, angular shadows across the golden sand. Tourists walk in awe across the ancient causeways, often unaware that just beneath their feet, extraordinary relics of Egypt's sacred past sleep. Relics not of stone, but of wood. Buried in secret pits beside the Great Pyramid, the solar boats of the pharaohs await their final journey. The story begins in 1954, when Egyptian archaeologist Kamal el-Malak made a discovery that stunned the world. While clearing debris at the base of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest of the three pyramids, workers uncovered a series of massive limestone blocks, tightly fitted and undisturbed for thousands of years. Beneath them lay something extraordinary: the dismantled remains of a full-sized cedarwood ship, perfectly preserved in the dry sands. Measuring over 140 feet long, the vessel was unlike anything seen before, constructed with a level of craftsmanship that rivaled anything the ancient world had produced. The planks were sewn together with ropes, a technique older than Egypt itself. When the boat was painstakingly reconstructed, piece by fragile piece, it became clear. This was no ordinary vessel. It was a solar boat, a sacred craft meant to carry the soul of the pharaoh through the heavens alongside Ra, the sun god. But why was it buried, perfectly intact, beneath the pyramid? And why had it been so carefully concealed? The mainstream interpretation, rooted in ancient Egyptian religious belief, holds that the boat was intended for use in the afterlife. The pharaoh Khufu, having ruled over Egypt with divine authority, would need a vessel to sail across the celestial river, to accompany the sun on its daily voyage across the sky, and to journey through the night's dangerous underworld. Yet this explanation, while consistent with ancient texts and tomb paintings, leaves much unexplained. If the boat was purely symbolic, why such astonishing detail and functionality? Why would a vessel capable of real navigation, not merely a model or offering, be built, only to be buried where it would never sail? Some scholars suggest that the boat may have had a dual purpose, first used during Khufu's lifetime for ritual processions along the Nile, then ritually buried as part of his funerary rites. Others argue that the boat's very construction, using materials imported from distant Lebanon, signifies its immense importance, perhaps even hinting at deeper meanings lost to us. The mystery deepens with the discovery of other boat pits surrounding the pyramids. In total, 5 pits were found near Khufu's pyramid, and more around the smaller pyramids and mortuary complexes of his successors. In 1987, a second sealed boat pit was identified next to the Great Pyramid, its contents undisturbed. Modern excavation revealed another massive ship, preserved through millennia, confirming that these solar boats were not isolated rituals, but part of a broader, deeply significant tradition. Still, questions remain. Were all the boats intended for the afterlife? Were some used in life, perhaps for sacred river journeys, reenacting myths of creation and rebirth? Were they purely religious in function, or did they serve as political symbols, demonstrations of the pharaoh's command over both the waters of the earth and the celestial realms? More speculative theories reach further still. Some propose that the solar boats were not merely symbolic vehicles, but embodied ancient Egyptian cosmology in ways we do not fully understand. The alignment of the pits around the Great Pyramid, carefully positioned in relation to the cardinal points, suggests a deliberate astronomical significance. Could the boats have played a role in sacred rites meant to maintain cosmic order, ensuring the balance of the universe as the pharaoh transitioned into eternity? There are even more fringe suggestions that the boats represent lost knowledge of celestial navigation, or that they are echoes of even older traditions, predating the pyramid builders themselves, remnants of a forgotten maritime culture whose myths were absorbed into Egypt's sprawling religious system. Yet the evidence remains tantalizingly incomplete. No texts from Khufu's time survive to explain the exact rituals associated with the boats. No inscriptions detail their precise purpose. We are left to interpret fragments: the orientation of the pits, the craftsmanship of the wood, the context of surrounding structures. Today, one of Khufu's solar boats is preserved in a special museum near the Great Pyramid, protected from the elements that might otherwise erase it. Standing before it, one cannot help but feel the weight of mystery. The long, elegant curves of the hull, the towering papyrus-shaped prow, the intricately woven ropes binding ancient timbers together. It is a relic that speaks not only of technical mastery, but of belief. A belief so strong, so total, that no effort was spared to ensure the king's passage to the next world. And yet, for all we know, we also know how much we do not understand. Why 2 boats? Why different burial methods for each? Were there once more boats, now lost to time and erosion? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, what rituals unfolded here, beneath the silent gaze of the pyramids, in ceremonies long ago swallowed by the shifting sands? The Giza Plateau holds many secrets. Some stand in plain sight, others lie buried just beyond our reach. The solar boats, resting in their sacred pits, remind us that even in a land as thoroughly studied as Egypt, the past continues to whisper. Elusive, fragmentary, incomplete. And as we listen to those whispers, we are left to wonder, what other sacred vessels, what other hidden journeys, still lie waiting beneath the desert's timeless veil? Beyond the grandeur of the Great Pyramid and the vast sweep of the desert sands, a quieter mystery lingers at Giza, one easily overlooked, yet no less intriguing. Nestled against the massive base of Khufu's pyramid, three smaller pyramids stand in a solemn row, their weathered stones softened by centuries of wind and sun. At first glance, they seem almost like echoes, miniature reflections of their colossal neighbor. Visitors pass by them quickly, drawn to the towering monuments that dominate the skyline. But these small pyramids, modest in scale yet rich in unanswered questions, hold their own secrets. Secrets that continue to challenge our understanding of Egypt's most iconic site. Traditionally referred to as the Queen's Pyramids, these structures have long been believed to house the remains of royal women, consorts of Pharaoh Khufu perhaps, or daughters of the king. Excavations have found evidence supporting this view. Fragments of sarcophagi, inscriptions naming queens such as Hetepheres, Meritates, and Hanutzen. The internal layouts, while simpler than the Great Pyramid, follow familiar patterns of burial chambers and descending passageways, suggesting a funerary purpose. Yet even these basics are not without debate. For one of the three pyramids, archaeological evidence suggests that it may never have been used for burial at all. No remains have been found within its core, leading some to question whether its intended occupant was interred elsewhere, or whether its true function was something entirely different. And there is more. The alignment and dimensions of the Queen's pyramids suggest a precision that hints at symbolic significance. Each structure is carefully positioned relative to the Great Pyramid and the broader Giza complex. They are not scattered randomly, but rather placed with an eye to geometric harmony, perhaps mirroring celestial patterns or echoing religious principles now only partially understood. Could these small pyramids have served a purpose beyond simple tombs? Were they designed as parts of a greater spiritual machine, components in a vast, sacred landscape intended to channel divine energies between the heavens and the earth? Some researchers propose that the Queen's pyramids, along with their causeways and adjacent mortuary temples, formed an integral part of Khufu's afterlife journey. In ancient Egyptian belief, the king's passage into eternity was not a solitary event, but a carefully orchestrated series of rituals requiring the participation of royal women, queens and priestesses, whose roles extended beyond life into the spiritual realm. Were these pyramids built to anchor that connection? To bind the king's spirit to the earth and sky, ensuring the eternal cycle of rebirth? Speculative theories stretch the mystery even further. Some suggest that the small pyramids were symbolic markers, not of individuals, but of cosmological principles. Perhaps they represented the stars of Orion's belt, as part of a grand astronomical plan linking the Giza Plateau to the heavens. Others propose that the small pyramids served as practice sites, architectural prototypes for the construction of the Great Pyramid itself, or even as part of initiatory rituals for the king's ascension to divine status. And then, there is the curious presence of additional small pyramids scattered across the Giza complex, remnants of structures once thought to be satellite pyramids, cult monuments, or cenotaphs. Their purposes remain uncertain. Some may have held ritual significance, Others may have been symbolic tombs for aspects of the king's soul, the Ba and K, whose safe passage was as critical as that of the physical body. The layers of meaning blur together, overlapping history, religion, and myth. Few definitive answers emerge from the sands. Adding to the mystery, the construction techniques of the small pyramids differ slightly from their massive counterpart. Their core blocks are rougher, their outer casings thinner, their layouts simpler. Was this a matter of resources and urgency? Or did different hands, different architects, different teams oversee their creation, perhaps in a secondary phase of the broader Giza project? The answers remain buried, both beneath the limestone rubble and within the fragmented records of Egypt's ancient memory. Today, standing before the Queen's pyramids, it is difficult not to feel a sense of profound quiet. These structures, overshadowed but endearing, speak to a forgotten dimension of ancient Egyptian life, a world where women held sacred authority, where death was not an end, but a passage, and where every stone placed by human hands resonated with cosmic intent. The stones are worn now, their fine casings stripped away by time and quarrying. Yet the essential mystery remains intact. Each angle, each shadow, each weathered inscription invites reflection. What roles did these structures truly play? Who walked these sacred causeways? What ceremonies unfolded here under the ancient stars? As we walk through the Giza Plateau, between the towering pyramids and these quieter, more intimate relics, we are reminded that the greatest mysteries are not always those that shout the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones that whisper just beyond our hearing, in the spaces between the stones, in the questions left unanswered. And so we are left to wonder, are the small pyramids of Giza merely royal tombs, or are they part of a forgotten map, a blueprint of a spiritual architecture still waiting to be understood? Beyond the silent stones of the Queen's pyramids, another enigma stirs, one not of architecture, but of a fleeting figure in history. A shadow who briefly wore the crown of Egypt, only to vanish, leaving behind more questions than answers. His name was Smenkhkare, or at least, that is the name recorded on a handful of surviving artifacts. A name that flickers through the final years of the Amarna period, a time already thick with uncertainty, upheaval, and the unraveling of royal power. In the twilight between Akhenaten's revolutionary reign and the restoration that followed under Tutankhamun, Smenkhkare appears, and then disappears, almost without a trace. In the ruins of Amarna, in shattered tombs and faded inscriptions, clues to Smenkkare's existence emerge in fragments. A few reliefs depict a figure wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Inscriptions mention a co-regent alongside Akhenaten. Scarabs and seals bear the name Ankeperure Smenkhkare Djeser Keperu, linking him, or her, to the royal line. But who was Smenkhkare? And what role did this mysterious pharaoh play in Egypt's most turbulent years? The mainstream theory suggests that Smenkhkare was a male successor, possibly a younger brother or close relative of Akhenaten. Some scholars propose that he served as a co-ruler during the final years of Akhenaten's reign, helping to stabilize a kingdom shaken by religious revolution and political unrest. After Akhenaten's death, Smenkhkare may have briefly ruled alone, a fragile bridge between the reign of the heretic king and the restoration of tradition under Tutankhamun. Yet this traditional view quickly runs into problems. The evidence for Smenkhkare is astonishingly thin. No confirmed tomb, no confirmed mummy, no intact monuments bearing his full titles survive. In fact, much of what we attribute to Smenkhkare comes from objects hastily reworked or defaced, reinscribed in ways that suggest political chaos and erasure. Even the gender of Smenkhkare is under debate. Some Egyptologists argue that Ankeperure, a throne name used during this period, was associated not with a young king, but with Queen Nefertiti herself, who may have adopted a new royal persona to stabilize the throne after Akhenaten's death. In this theory, Smenkhkare is not a separate male ruler at all, but Nefertiti transformed into a pharaoh in her own right. If true, this would mirror the precedent set earlier in Egyptian history by Hatshepsut, a queen who ruled as king, assuming full pharaonic regalia to legitimize her authority. But other scholars are less certain. Some propose that Smenkhkare was Akhenaten's son, perhaps by a lesser wife, or even his son-in-law, married to the famous princess Meritaten. Others point to the possibility that Smenkhkare was a puppet ruler, briefly elevated by powerful court factions seeking to undo Akhenaten's religious reforms without sparking open rebellion. Still others suggest even stranger possibilities. Could Smenkhkare have been both male and female? A reflection of the blurred gender roles so characteristic of the Amarna period's artistic and theological experiments. Was Smenkhkare a symbol more than a person, a name used by multiple individuals to lend continuity to a crumbling dynasty? And what of the body found in Tomb KV55 in the Valley of the Kings, the badly damaged mummy once speculated to be Smenkhkare? DNA analysis suggests it belonged to a close relative of Tutankhamun, a male who died young. But the identification remains murky. Some argue it is Akhenaten himself. Others hold out hope that it might be Smenkhkare, offering a tantalizing, if incomplete, glimpse into the life and death of this shadowy pharaoh. The confusion is compounded by the deliberate erasure of Amarna history. Later rulers, eager to distance themselves from Akhenaten's heresy, systematically destroyed records, defaced monuments, and suppressed names. Smenkhkare may have been caught in this political purging. His brief reign rendered invisible not by the sands of time, but by the conscious efforts of those who sought to rewrite the past. Today, standing among the ruins of Amarna, it is easy to imagine the uncertainty that gripped Egypt during those turbulent years. A royal family fractured by death, disease, and ideology. A populace torn between loyalty to the old gods and the radical worship of the Aten. And in the midst of this chaos, a young ruler, or rulers, trying to hold the fragile kingdom together. Smenkhkare's story, whatever it may be, reflects the complexity and fragility of power in ancient Egypt. A reminder that even the mightiest empires, even the most carefully constructed dynasties, are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Disease, dissent, disaster, and the unrelenting pressure of history itself. As we sift through the broken reliefs, the half-erased cartouches, the puzzling artifacts of the late 18th dynasty, we are left to wonder, who was Smenkhkare? A forgotten son? A grieving queen? A political pawn? Or something else entirely? A reflection of Egypt's deepest struggles, given form only briefly before vanishing into myth. The desert keeps its secrets well. And for now, Smenkhkare remains a name without a face, a crown without a clear owner. A fleeting figure glimpsed only through the cracks in history's crumbling facade. As the figure of Smenkhkare fades once more into the shadows of time, we are drawn toward a different kind of mystery, not of rulers and dynasties, but of knowledge itself. A story whispered through centuries, where myth and reality blend into something even more elusive. In the twilight of ancient Egypt, there was no greater symbol of wisdom than Thoth, the ibis-headed god of writing, knowledge, and the secrets of the cosmos. To the Egyptians, Thoth was more than a scribe of the gods. He was the architect of laws, the inventor of hieroglyphs, the master of time, and the custodian of mysteries both earthly and divine. Legends speak of a sacred book, a papyrus inscribed by Thoth's own hand, containing the ultimate secrets of the universe. It is known as the Book of Thoth. Some accounts describe it as a scroll of immense power, capable of granting the reader mastery over the earth, the sea, and the heavens. Within its verses, it was said, lay spells to commune with the gods, to resurrect the dead, to see the future with unclouded eyes. It was a text so potent, so dangerous, that even the gods were said to fear its misuse. But where is it? And did it ever truly exist? Hints of the Book of Thoth survive in scattered fragments. References appear in ancient Egyptian stories, later echoed and reimagined by Greek and Roman writers. The most famous of these tales recounts how an Egyptian prince, driven by ambition and curiosity, sought out the hidden book. After trials and perils, he found it, only to be cursed by the very knowledge he sought to wield. In these stories, forbidden wisdom is never without its price. Scholars have long debated the origins and meaning of the Book of Thoth legend. Some suggest it was an allegory, a mythological warning about the dangers of seeking knowledge beyond human limits. Others believe it reflects the existence of real collections of sacred texts, housed in temple libraries, attributed to Thoth in spirit, if not in fact. Indeed, ancient Egyptian temples like those at Hermopolis, Edfu, and Abydos once contained vast repositories of papyri. Priests recorded rituals, astronomical data, medicinal recipes, magical spells, and complex theological treatises. To the initiates who guarded these libraries, writing itself was a sacred act, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. Could it be that among these countless scrolls, there once existed a particularly revered manuscript, one that, over centuries, grew in legend until it became the lost Book of Thoth? More speculative theories suggest deeper layers. Some propose that the Book of Thoth was not merely a literary creation, but a real, singular document, a compilation of ancient wisdom drawn from a time before recorded history. A relic of a forgotten civilization whose knowledge was absorbed and mythologized by the Egyptians. In this view, the Book of Thoth becomes not just a repository of religious lore, but a codex of cosmic principles, lost sciences, metaphysical truths, keys to powers long since faded from human reach. Fringe theories go even further. Some connect the Book of Thoth to the fabled Hall of Records, a supposed hidden archive said to lie beneath the Sphinx, safeguarding the lost knowledge of Atlantis and earlier ages. Others link it to the Hermetic tradition, the mystical writings of late antiquity that blended Egyptian, Greek, and esoteric thought, laying the philosophical foundations for later alchemy and occult practices. But these are paths that quickly leave the realm of certainties behind. In the world of verifiable archaeology, no document matching the description of the Book of Thoth has ever been found. Fragments of magical papyri exist, yes, collections like the Book of the Dead or the coffin texts, detailing spells and rituals for the afterlife. But nothing that claims the all-encompassing, perilous power attributed to Thoth's lost manuscript. Could it be that the Book of Thoth was never meant to be found? That it was deliberately hidden or destroyed to prevent its misuse? Could it be encoded into other surviving texts, scattered in pieces across different traditions? Or did it never exist in material form at all? A myth, a symbol, an idea that haunted the ancient imagination. The sands of Egypt are silent on the matter. The libraries of the ancient world, from the great temple archives to the legendary Library of Alexandria, are mostly lost, consumed by fire, conquest, and time. Whatever secrets they held have been reduced to ash and memory. And yet, the allure of the Book of Thoth persists. It speaks to something deep within us, the yearning to understand, to pierce the veil of the unknown, to touch the hidden structures that govern existence. It is a symbol of ultimate knowledge, and the ultimate caution against seeking too much. Today, beneath the desert sun, and within the crumbling walls of Egypt's ancient temples, we are left to wonder, did the priests once guard a book so powerful that its very survival threatened the world? Did a prince once find a scroll that unraveled his destiny? Or was it all a story, spun from the eternal human fear and desire of knowing what was never meant to be known? The lost papyrus of Thoth remains a phantom in history's long corridors. Whether real or imagined, its mystery endures, inviting each new generation to ask the same unanswerable questions. As the echoes of the lost book of Thoth fade into the depths of forgotten wisdom, our journey returns to the enduring monuments of stone, to a structure that, while often overshadowed by its more famous neighbors at Giza, holds mysteries of its own. Rising from the arid plains of Dashur, south of Cairo, stands the Red Pyramid, the first true smooth-sided pyramid in Egypt's history. In the stillness of the desert, its reddish limestone gleams under the shifting light, casting long shadows across the sand. From a distance, its elegant symmetry evokes a sense of calm permanence, a monument to an age that dared to shape stone into eternal forms. Yet as we draw closer, questions begin to stir. Who truly built this remarkable structure? And what knowledge, or necessity, guided its creation? Conventional history attributes the Red Pyramid to Pharaoh Sneferu, founder of Egypt's fourth dynasty, who reigned around 2600 BC. Sneferu, a ruler known for his ambitious building projects, is credited with a pivotal transformation in pyramid construction, moving from the earlier stepped forms to the smooth-sided giants that would later define Egypt's golden age. Archaeological evidence supports this attribution. Inscriptions found near the pyramid link it to Sneferu, naming him with royal titles that associate the monument with his reign. The architectural evolution from the earlier Meidum and Bent pyramids, both linked to Sneferu, suggests a logical progression in technique, culminating in the flawless geometry of the Red Pyramid. But even so, mysteries remain. The sheer scale and precision of the Red Pyramid provoke wonder. Over 344 feet high, with sides stretching more than 720 feet at the base, the pyramid is constructed from massive limestone blocks, each weighing several tons, laid with astonishing accuracy. Its internal structure, a series of corbelled chambers and corridors, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of weight distribution and engineering that seems to leap suddenly forward from earlier efforts. How, within a single reign, did Egyptian architects and workers develop such mastery? Was it truly the result of trial and error, honed across the failures and lessons of Sneferu's earlier projects? Or does the leap in design hint at lost techniques, forgotten knowledge, or influences not fully understood? There are curious details. The angle of the Red Pyramid, a gentle 43 degrees, matches the upper portion of the Bent Pyramid, suggesting a deliberate continuation rather than a fresh experiment. Was the Red Pyramid originally intended to correct the flaws of its predecessor? Or was it conceived simultaneously, part of a larger, more complex vision for royal tombs than we have yet uncovered? Some have speculated that the Red Pyramid was not merely a tomb, but a symbolic monument, a sacred machine aligned with cosmic forces. Its orientation to the cardinal points is remarkably precise, suggesting not just practical engineering skill, but astronomical knowledge. Could it be that the pyramid's builders were embedding deeper meanings into the very geometry of the stone? A dialogue between earth and sky, life and death, permanence and transcendence. The reddish hue of the pyramid's casing stones adds another layer of mystery. While erosion and time have altered the original appearance, it is believed that the Red Pyramid may have once gleamed a soft golden pink under the desert sun, a deliberate aesthetic choice that could have carried symbolic significance. In ancient Egyptian symbolism, red was a powerful color, associated with life, vitality, and sometimes with chaos and the desert. Was the Red Pyramid's coloration intended to invoke these complex ideas, weaving them into the fabric of the king's eternal home? Yet for all its grandeur, the Red Pyramid feels strangely empty today. Its internal corridors, though imposing, are stark and unadorned. No grand burial artifacts were found within. No sarcophagus remains in its intended place. If Sneferu was ever interred here, no trace of his body or treasures has been conclusively identified. Why? Was the pyramid plundered in antiquity, its riches lost to time and tomb robbers? Was the burial ever completed at all? Or did Sneferu, in the final reckoning of his reign, choose another resting place, one that remains undiscovered beneath the sands? More speculative theories have suggested even stranger possibilities. Some propose that the Red Pyramid was not primarily a tomb at all, but a temple, a monument intended to honor cosmic cycles, the rebirth of the sun, the eternal balance between chaos and order. Others hint at the possibility that the Red Pyramid, and others like it, are far older than traditionally believed, remnants of a forgotten epoch whose true history has been overwritten by later generations. While mainstream archaeology maintains the traditional timeline, these fringe theories remind us of how much we still do not know, how few records survive from Egypt's earliest dynastic periods, and how easily the sands can swallow centuries of human endeavor. Today, standing before the Red Pyramid, the sense of quiet mystery is overwhelming. There are no throngs of tourists here, no bustling crowds, only the endless horizon, the shifting winds, and the massive stones that refuse to surrender their secrets. The entrances yawn dark and cool against the heated air, inviting the brave to descend into the hollow chambers within. The stones, cut and placed with such care, whisper of hands long vanished, of minds that dreamed not only of kingship, but of eternity. And so we are left to wonder, who truly conceived of this magnificent structure? Was it merely the product of determined trial and error? Or was there, hidden behind the planning and the stones, a deeper understanding, a sacred knowledge of geometry, of the heavens, of the mysterious journey that begins beyond death's door? The Red Pyramid stands, enduring and enigmatic, a testament to ancient ambition, and an invitation to those who still seek the forgotten truths written in the language of stone. As the red stones of Sneferu's pyramid fade into the shimmering heat of the desert, our attention is drawn once again to Giza, to a figure older, more enigmatic, and perhaps even more elusive than the pyramids themselves. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, the Great Sphinx of Giza rises from the plateau like a timeless sentinel. Its body, weathered and worn, stretches over 240 feet across the sands. Its face, though battered by centuries of wind and time, still gazes with silent authority toward the rising sun. No monument in Egypt inspires greater awe or deeper mystery. Yet for all its majesty above ground, it is what lies beneath the Sphinx that has stirred some of the most enduring questions. Legends of hidden chambers, buried halls, and secret tunnels have surrounded the Sphinx for millennia. Ancient texts, from the writings of Pliny the Elder to the Islamic scholars of the Middle Ages, spoke of vast subterranean complexes beneath Giza, repositories of lost knowledge, tombs of forgotten kings, and libraries built by gods or demigods before the dawn of known history. Modern archaeology has confirmed that the bedrock beneath the Sphinx is not uniformly solid. Subsurface surveys, including ground-penetrating radar scans conducted in the late 20th century, have detected anomalies, hollow spaces, fissures, and possible chambers within and beneath the monument's foundations. Some of these voids correspond to natural fractures in the limestone. Others, more tantalizingly, suggest man-made structures. One of the known features is a shaft on the back of the Sphinx, descending vertically into the bedrock. First documented in the 19th century, this shaft was later sealed for safety. Another cavity is located near the Sphinx's front paws, close to the enigmatic dream stele, an artifact erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV, which recounts a vision promising kingship in exchange for freeing the buried Sphinx from the desert sands. What was the purpose of these shafts? Were they simply maintenance tunnels, later additions by priests or tomb robbers? Or are they remnants of something much older, an earlier construction phase, or an entirely different vision of the Sphinx's original purpose? Mainstream Egyptology remains cautious. Most scholars view the voids as natural fissures or later intrusive structures with no connection to a hidden library or lost civilization. The prevailing theory holds that the Sphinx was carved during the reign of Khafra, around 2500 BC, as a guardian of his pyramid complex. In this view, the tunnels and shafts are either structural necessities or the result of later reuse during the New Kingdom and beyond. But not everyone agrees. Some researchers suggest that the weathering patterns on the Sphinx's body, deep vertical fissures and rounded erosion, indicate water damage far more severe than what would be expected from mere desert wind and sand. Could it be, they ask, that the Sphinx predates Khafra's reign by thousands of years, carved in a time when the Giza Plateau was subjected to heavy rains? Perhaps at the end of the last ice age, over 10,000 years ago? If the Sphinx is far older than traditionally believed, then the tunnels beneath it might not be incidental features, but integral parts of an ancient design, remnants of a civilization whose memory was later overwritten by dynastic Egypt. Further fueling speculation are persistent stories about a hidden hall of records, a fabled archive said to house the wisdom of a lost civilization, sealed beneath the Sphinx for safekeeping until a future age of rediscovery. This idea, popularized by 20th century mystics and fringe theorists, finds little support in academic circles. Yet it lingers, not least because the Sphinx, so battered and enigmatic, seems to invite such dreams. Excavations around the Sphinx have been limited and highly controlled. While some of the anomalies detected by modern surveys have been investigated, others remain unexplored, preserved in the name of protecting the fragile monument. Whether these hidden spaces hold archaeological treasures, natural voids, or nothing at all remains, for now, unknown. What we do know is that the Sphinx has undergone numerous phases of repair and reimagining throughout its long life. Inscriptions record restorations during the New Kingdom and even later periods, suggesting that the Sphinx was already an ancient relic by the time of Ramses II. Each generation seems to have projected its own meaning onto the statue. Pharaohs, priests, pilgrims, all drawn to the mystery of its form. And so it remains today, a riddle without a final answer. When we stand before the Great Sphinx, it is impossible not to feel the weight of its silence. Its colossal paws stretch forward, as if reaching across the ages. Its battered face bears the scars of forgotten centuries. Beneath it, the bedrock trembles with secrets still untold. Are the tunnels beneath the Sphinx remnants of early engineering? Forgotten tombs? Mere accidents of geology? Or could they yet reveal a hidden chapter of human history, preserved beneath the sands, waiting for the right moment, or the right question, to be uncovered? In the shadows of the Sphinx, mystery endures, timeless, impenetrable, beckoning. As we linger beneath the silent gaze of the Sphinx, contemplating the mysteries hidden within the bedrock itself, the sands of time guide us further south, to one of the oldest and most sacred sites of ancient Egypt. Here, at Abydos, where the Nile bends quietly through the desert, the ancient Egyptians believed the gates to the afterlife could be found. It was a place of profound reverence, the cult center of Osiris, god of the dead and ruler of the underworld. In the heart of this hallowed ground, within the temple of Seti the Furan, an artifact rests that seems, at first glance, to offer clarity. A list, carefully carved into stone, naming the kings of Egypt across centuries. But as is often the case with Egypt's enduring relics, the closer we look, the deeper the mystery becomes. The Abydos King List is a stunning and solemn record, a chronological sequence of 76 pharaohs, stretching from the mythical beginnings of Egyptian kingship down to Seti's own reign, around 1290 BC. The cartouches, ovals encircling royal names, march across the wall in elegant procession, a visual testament to the continuity and legitimacy of Egypt's divine rulers. Yet not every king is included. Conspicuously absent are certain pharaohs whose reigns were known even in antiquity. Rulers who, for reasons still debated, were deliberately erased from official memory. Among those omitted are Akhenaten, the heretic king who abandoned Egypt's traditional gods for the worship of the Aten, his immediate successors Smenkhkare and Tutankhamun, and Hatshepsut, the powerful queen who ruled as pharaoh in her own right. Why were they excluded? And what does this selective history tell us about how the ancient Egyptians viewed their own past? The mainstream explanation points to a practice known as damnatio memoriae, the erasure of disgraced rulers from public records. Akhenaten's religious revolution upended centuries of tradition, dismantling temples and defiling the priesthoods of Egypt's ancient gods. His successors, eager to restore order, systematically destroyed his monuments and obliterated his name from inscriptions. In the eyes of later kings like Seti I, Akhenaten was an aberration to be forgotten, not honored. Similarly, Hatshepsut's exclusion reflects the uneasy legacy of her reign. Though she brought prosperity and stability to Egypt, her unusual position as a female pharaoh challenged deeply rooted traditions. After her death, later rulers sought to restore the proper masculine line of succession, chiseling her images from temple walls and rewriting the official story of the royal lineage. The Abydos King List, then, presents an idealized version of history, one in which political and religious deviations have been smoothed away, offering the illusion of an unbroken, divinely sanctioned monarchy. Yet, some scholars suggest that there may be more to the omissions than mere politics. The very act of editing history, of choosing which kings to remember and which to forget, hints at deeper currents running beneath the surface of Egyptian society. Were these omissions simply efforts to erase embarrassment? Or did they reflect ancient anxieties about cosmic balance, about preserving Ma'at, the sacred order of the universe, against the chaos embodied by unorthodox rulers? And what of the earlier kings listed at Abydos, those from Egypt's shadowy semi-mythical past? Figures like Menes, the first unifier of Upper and Lower Egypt, whose historicity remains debated. How much of the list reflects genuine memory, and how much is a crafted mythology, designed to link each new pharaoh to a timeless, divinely ordained narrative? Speculative theories reach even further. Some suggest that the omissions hide not just politically inconvenient reigns, but lost dynasties, rulers or lines of succession deliberately buried, perhaps because they threatened the prevailing order. Others propose that hidden within Egypt's ancient king lists are echoes of civilizations even older than dynastic Egypt, forgotten precursors whose memories survived only as faint traces in official records. Fringe ideas connect the gaps in the Abydos King List to the notion of pre-dynastic civilizations, lost ages of human history that the Egyptians inherited rather than originated. According to these theories, the earliest names on the list, kings said to have ruled for hundreds or thousands of years, are not myths, but distorted memories of a time when Egypt was shaped by forces now lost to history. Such ideas remain speculative, unsupported by concrete archaeological evidence. Yet they persist, fueled by the tantalizing nature of the Abydos list itself, a document that offers both an assertion of history and an admission of how much has been hidden, altered, or forgotten. Today, the Temple of Seti at Abydos is a place of haunting beauty. The air is cool and still beneath its carved ceilings, where faded stars still shine above ancient colonnades. Visitors walk slowly along the walls, tracing the procession of royal names, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down through the stone. The Abydos king list stands as both a record and a riddle, a map of Egypt's past that, like the land itself, is filled with gaps, silences, and hidden corridors. It reminds us that history is never a simple story, but a tapestry woven from memory, myth, ambition, and fear. And so we are left to wonder, what truths lie in the spaces between the names? What lost kings, what forgotten eras, still sleep beneath the sands, waiting to be remembered? As we leave behind the carved walls of Abydos and the silent omissions of the ancient king lists, our journey carries us once more to the heart of the Giza Plateau, to a mystery hidden not in what has survived, but in what has vanished. Standing beneath the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest and most enduring of Egypt's ancient monuments, one cannot help but feel the enormity of human ambition made stone. Its massive blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, are fitted with a precision that defies the tools and methods we confidently attribute to its builders. Its perfect alignment to the cardinal points, its astonishing symmetry, its silent defiance of time, all speak to a project far greater than mere mortal pride. And yet, curiously, a crucial part of this monumental complex is missing. Ancient sources and modern archaeology both confirm that Khufu's pyramid was once part of a larger ceremonial landscape, a royal necropolis designed to serve the pharaoh not only in death, but in his journey through the afterlife. This landscape included mortuary temples, causeways, satellite pyramids, boat pits, and a valley temple that connected the whole to the living world along the banks of the Nile. Today, fragments of Khufu's mortuary temple survive, shattered basalt flooring, scattered foundations, worn by centuries of quarrying and erosion. But the larger valley temple, the grand structure that once received the body of the dead king before his final ascent to the pyramid, has never been conclusively found. How could such a critical component of Egypt's most iconic royal complex simply disappear? The mortuary and valley temples were essential parts of pyramid construction during the Old Kingdom. They served as the ritual heart of the funerary complex, the place where offerings were made, ceremonies conducted, and where the king's eternal connection to the divine was renewed. In Khafra's pyramid complex, immediately adjacent to Khufu's, these elements still stand. The Great Causeway, the Valley Temple, and the Sphinx, all woven together into a grand design. By contrast, Khufu's Valley Temple remains elusive. No standing walls, no inscriptions, only faint traces and lingering questions. One explanation lies in the ravages of time. Over the centuries, the Giza Plateau has been plundered for building material. Entire layers of casing stones, once polished to a mirror finish, were stripped away to construct medieval Cairo. Temples and tombs alike were dismantled, their stones reused or lost. The Valley Temple, if built close to the original Nile floodplain as theorized, may have been particularly vulnerable, damaged by centuries of inundations, buried under sediment, or dismantled long before careful records were kept. In 1930, archaeologist George Reisner proposed that a field of large limestone blocks found east of the Great Pyramid might represent the remains of Khufu's Valley Temple. Excavations in the 20th and 21st centuries have uncovered further hints: foundation trenches, fragments of granite paving. But no complete plan, no full reconstruction of the temple's grandeur. Was Khufu's Valley Temple simpler than those of his successors? Was it swallowed by the shifting landscape of the Nile, dismantled beyond recognition by later generations, or never completed at all? There are alternative theories as well. Some suggest that Khufu's Valley Temple was once connected to the now vanished structures surrounding the Sphinx. If true, it would mean that the architectural vision of Khufu's reign extended far beyond what is immediately visible, encompassing a sacred landscape whose full meaning remains hidden beneath layers of sand and time. Others propose that the original Valley Temple was replaced or transformed during later dynasties, its original purpose lost as new rulers reinterpreted the sacred spaces of Giza to suit their own beliefs and needs. And still others wonder whether the temple was destroyed intentionally. As dynasties rose and fell, and political and religious tides shifted, monuments associated with older rulers were sometimes defaced, dismantled, or repurposed. Could Khufu's Valley Temple have been a casualty of these ancient struggles over memory and meaning? The very absence of the temple opens a window into Egypt's long and complicated relationship with its own past. A past both revered and, at times, rewritten. Today, standing at the foot of the Great Pyramid, the desert wind carries whispers from the unseen. We know the pyramid was not meant to stand alone. It was part of a living, breathing ritual landscape, a theater for sacred rites now lost to history. Without the Valley Temple, we are missing a key chapter in the story of how Khufu imagined his eternal life, how the priests and people of Egypt once honored the divine king, who ruled not just a nation, but the cosmic order itself. We are left with a handful of broken stones, vague traces in the earth, and the weight of a colossal absence. And so we are left to wonder, what rites were once performed along the vanished walls of Khufu's temple? What prayers were spoken, what offerings given, what secrets sealed behind its now erased threshold? Was the temple simply lost to time, like so many relics of the ancient world? Or does it lie still hidden, buried under the modern city, or under the very sands that for millennia have guarded Egypt's most enduring mysteries? The Great Pyramid endures, silent, immutable. But the lost temple at its feet reminds us that even in the face of eternity, memory can be fragile, and that some of Egypt's greatest secrets are not found in what survives, but in what is missing. As the silence surrounding Khufu's lost temple settles once more over the sands of Giza, our path leads us southward, toward the green heart of Upper Egypt, where another enigma waits, carved not in absence, but in stone. Here, in the sleepy town of Dendera, on the west bank of the Nile, rises one of the best-preserved temples of ancient Egypt. The Temple of Hathor, goddess of love, music, and healing, is a structure of almost impossible beauty. Its massive columns crowned with images of the goddess's serene face, its ceilings still painted deep blue and spangled with golden stars. And deep within this temple, tucked away in chambers few visitors reach, lies a series of strange carvings, depictions that have sparked decades of debate and wonder. Images that, to some eyes, seem to suggest an impossible possibility, that the ancient Egyptians might have harnessed a form of electrical technology. This is the so-called Dendera light bulb theory. The carvings, located in the subterranean crypts beneath the temple, show a peculiar scene. In the reliefs, what appears to be a large bulb-shaped object is depicted, with a thick stem or filament running through its center. This bulb is connected by a cable-like line to a base resembling a socket or pedestal. Figures stand around the object, holding or supporting it, while a snake emerges from its center, a serpent contained within the glowing oval. At first glance, the resemblance to a modern electric light bulb, complete with filament and wire, is striking. Could it be possible that ancient Egyptian priests possessed a knowledge of electricity long before its supposed invention in the modern age? Could the Dendera carvings be evidence of lost technology, glimpses of an understanding now buried by time? Mainstream Egyptology offers a more conservative explanation. Scholars interpret the reliefs not as depictions of advanced technology, but as religious symbolism. According to this view, The bulb-like structure represents a lotus flower, from which a sacred snake, symbolizing divine energy and creation, emerges. The entire scene, they argue, is a visual metaphor rooted in the mythology of rebirth, closely tied to the daily journey of the sun god through the underworld. In this interpretation, the bulb is not a technological device, but a mythological image, a reflection of spiritual truths rather than scientific ones. Yet the light bulb theory persists. Its supporters point to the absence of soot or smoke damage on the ceilings of tombs and temples, a mystery in itself, considering the presumed reliance on oil lamps for illumination. How, they ask, could painters and carvers have worked in pitch-dark chambers without leaving traces of fire? Some propose that the Dendera crypts, hidden away and accessible only to high priests, might have contained secret knowledge or rituals known only to a few. In this view, the images could represent not just religious symbolism, but guarded depictions of technologies now forgotten. There are other curious details. In one of the reliefs, an object resembling what could be interpreted as a generator or energy source appears beneath the bulb-like shape. Figures are shown manipulating these devices with apparent precision and care. Serpents, long associated in many ancient cultures with energy, wisdom, and life force, seem to flow within the objects, suggesting movement, vitality, power. Of course, without direct evidence, without preserved devices, wiring, or detailed technical texts, the idea remains firmly in the realm of speculation. Skeptics remind us that ancient art often used surreal or non-literal imagery to convey complex spiritual concepts. The Egyptians did not draw to replicate the physical world exactly. They drew to represent ideas, cosmic truths, and divine principles. What to modern eyes resembles technology may simply be the misunderstood language of myth. Yet the Dendera carvings continue to fuel the imagination. They are a reminder of how much we do not know, of how easily ancient knowledge, practices, and meanings can slip beyond our understanding. Was it merely artistry, a sacred metaphor chiseled in stone? Or is it possible that beneath the myths of ancient Egypt, there once existed knowledge far beyond what we typically attribute to early civilizations? Today, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera remains a place of quiet wonder. Few visitors wander into the crypts, where the air grows cool and heavy with the weight of centuries. The carvings rest in the half-light, their lines still sharp after thousands of years, their secrets unspoken. Standing in the shadow of those ancient walls, beneath the heavy gaze of forgotten gods, the mind cannot help but drift. Could the ancients have glimpsed principles we are only now rediscovering? Could their temples have held more than religious devotion, repositories of knowledge passed down through guarded initiation, lost amid the rise and fall of empires? Or are we simply projecting our own modern myths onto a past that was, in truth, stranger, and in some ways even more profound than any technology we can imagine? In the silent halls of Dendera, the carvings remain, watching, waiting, inviting us, as always, to look and to wonder. As we leave behind the shadowed crypts of Dendera and their strange silent images, we venture even further, not into temples or tombs, but into the open, unforgiving desert. Far to the southwest of Cairo, beyond the reach of the Nile's life-giving waters, lies a landscape that defies easy explanation. Here, in the scorching emptiness of Wadi al-Hitan, the Valley of the Whales, the earth tells a story so ancient that it stretches back to a time before humanity, before civilization, before memory itself. At first glance, the valley appears desolate. Rolling dunes and sculpted rock formations stretch to the horizon, painted in shades of ochre, gold, and deep rust. The sun beats down relentlessly, and the wind whispers through empty corridors of stone. Yet scattered across this barren plain are remnants of a forgotten world, Hundreds of fossilized skeletons emerging from the sand, like the bones of mythical beasts. Massive vertebrae lie exposed, bleached by sun and time. Curving ribs arc skyward, as if reaching toward a sea that has long since vanished. Some fossils measure over 60 feet in length, their bones testifying to creatures that once ruled an ancient ocean. A place where Egypt, now dry and arid, was submerged beneath warm, shallow waters. The fossils at Wadi al-Hitan tell a story of transformation. These were not ordinary whales. They were ancient species, transitional forms, caught in the process of evolution. Creatures like Basilosaurus and Dorudon, primitive whales that still bore vestiges of hind limbs, remnants of legs long since abandoned in their slow return to the sea. Their skeletons reveal a delicate moment in time, when land-dwelling mammals, having evolved legs to walk on solid ground, reversed their course and adapted once again to an aquatic life. It is a reminder that evolution is not a linear path, but a complex and often mysterious journey. Wadi al-Hitan is today recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated for its unparalleled collection of fossils that illuminate the distant past. Yet, even here, among the dry sands and silent bones, mysteries remain. Why did these ancient whales die here in such numbers? What ancient catastrophe, what subtle shift in climate or environment transformed this thriving ocean into a graveyard? Mainstream science offers cautious explanations. Wadi al-Hitan may have once been a shallow lagoon or coastal sea where whales gathered to feed, breed, or give birth. Shifting sea levels, tectonic activity, or changing currents could have stranded them, their bodies settling into soft sediments that preserved them for millions of years. Yet the scale and concentration of the remains still inspire questions. Some suggest that the whales may have been trapped by sudden environmental changes, mass strandings triggered by unknown forces. Others wonder whether ancient migrations, drawn by instinct and need, ended in disaster here, in a place that was once alive with water, but turned, inexorably, into desert. More speculative theories emerge at the edges of scientific inquiry. Could shifts in Earth's magnetic field, or even cosmic events, have disrupted the migratory senses of these early whales, drawing them to their doom? Could ancient global climate events, now only faintly understood, have reshaped entire ecosystems in ways more sudden and devastating than we yet realize? The answers, if they exist, lie buried deep within the layered stones and shifting dunes. Today, walking through Wadi al-Hitan feels like stepping into another world. The ground crunches underfoot, gritty with sand and fragments of ancient shells. The skeletal remains are cordoned off carefully, protected by conservationists, but their presence is palpable, a silent testimony to a time when Egypt was not a kingdom of sand and stone, but of water and life. Standing before the fossilized spine of a Basilosaurus, its long body coiling across the earth, one cannot help but feel small, a witness to a span of time that dwarfs human history entirely. These were creatures that lived 40 to 50 million years ago, in an Egypt utterly unrecognizable to us. Long before the first pyramid rose against the sky, before the first hieroglyph was etched into stone, before the first pharaoh claimed divine right to rule, these whales swam through tropical seas that glittered under ancient suns. And now, their bones lie in silence, beneath a burning sky, whispering a story most will never hear. What else might lie hidden beneath Egypt's deserts? If the bones of ancient oceans can survive for millions of years, what other traces of forgotten worlds, biological, geological, or even human, remain entombed beneath the sand, waiting to be uncovered? Wadi al-Hitan reminds us that Egypt's mysteries are not limited to the works of kings and priests. They are written too, in the very earth itself, in the stones and fossils that speak of ages so ancient they slip almost beyond comprehension. The Valley of the Whales stands as a bridge between worlds, between land and sea, between past and present, between what we think we know, and the vastness of all that we do not. And so, as the desert winds sweep across the valley, shaping the dunes, and slowly revealing the bones of the deep past, we are left to wonder, what other stories has the earth kept hidden from us? And how many have already been lost, carried away by the patient hands of time? As the ancient echoes of Wadi al-Hitan fade into the vastness of geological time, our journey leads us back into the human world, yet not to the grandeur of pyramids or the epic scale of lost cities. Instead, we step quietly into the realm of precision, artistry, and mystery crafted in luminous stone. In the heart of Karnak, one of Egypt's most sacred sites, stands a structure unlike any other, the White Chapel of Senusret I. Reconstructed from scattered fragments in the 20th century, this gleaming monument, though modest in size, radiates a quiet majesty that belies its age. Its pale limestone walls, intricately carved with scenes of ritual and kingship, seem almost untouched by the relentless march of millennia. Bathed in the soft golden light of the Egyptian sun, the White Chapel gleams with an almost ethereal brilliance, a silent testament to an era when art, theology, and power were seamlessly intertwined. Built around 1950 BC during the reign of Senusret I, a pharaoh of the 12th dynasty, the chapel served as a bark shrine, a resting place for the sacred boat of the god Amun during religious processions. Yet, even as scholars admire its craftsmanship and cultural importance, questions about its true purpose and its mysterious fate continue to linger. Why was such a masterpiece dismantled and buried, only to be forgotten for nearly 4,000 years? Historical records suggest that the White Chapel was part of a much larger sacred complex at Karnak, a sprawling temple dedicated to the worship of Amun, king of the gods. Senusret I's reign was a period of consolidation and religious revival, and the creation of such a finely detailed shrine would have been a political and spiritual act, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine mandate and his relationship with the gods. The carvings on the chapel's walls are masterpieces of precision. They depict Senusret I receiving the blessings of various deities, offering ritual gifts, and embracing the divine figures that protected his rule. Hieroglyphic inscriptions record the names of Egyptian nomes, the provinces of ancient Egypt, emphasizing the unity and order the king brought to his land. Yet, centuries after its construction, the White Chapel disappeared. Archaeological evidence indicates that during the New Kingdom, perhaps under the reign of Amenhotep III or later pharaohs, the White Chapel was dismantled, its stones reused as filler material for new construction projects at Karnak. It was buried deep within the foundations of a pylon, forgotten as new monuments rose above it. Why would later rulers destroy such a carefully crafted monument? Mainstream theories suggest pragmatic reasons: the need for building materials, the shifting priorities of evolving religious and political centers, or the desire to eclipse earlier dynasties with grander projects. In a world where temples were constantly renewed, expanded, and repurposed, even sacred structures could be sacrificed to the ambitions of future kings. Yet some scholars propose deeper motives. Perhaps the ideological shifts between dynasties played a role. As Egypt's theology evolved, as new gods rose in prominence and political centers shifted, the monuments of the past may have been seen as obsolete, even threatening. Dismantling them was not merely practical, but symbolic, an assertion that power and divine favor had passed to new rulers, new orders. Others speculate that Senusret I's association with Amun, a god whose cult grew immensely in later centuries, may have become problematic as theological nuances changed. Could the White Chapel have represented a version of Amun worship that later priests sought to obscure or redefine. And then there are those who suggest even subtler mysteries. The almost mathematical precision of the chapel's construction, the astronomical alignment suggested by some researchers, the symbolic arrangement of the known carvings, all hint at knowledge encoded in stone. Knowledge that may have held meanings beyond the religious narratives written on its surface. Was the White Chapel merely a bark shrine, or was it also a kind of cosmic diagram, a microcosm of Egypt itself, or even of the universe as the ancient Egyptians understood it? The restoration of the White Chapel in the 20th century was a laborious process, piecing together the shattered fragments with painstaking care. Today, visitors to Karnak can walk through its reconstructed walls, marveling at the extraordinary quality of the reliefs, the crisp lines, the subtle play of light and shadow, the enduring power of its sacred imagery. Yet even in its restored form, the chapel retains an aura of mystery. There are no definitive answers to why it was hidden, no surviving texts that explain its dismantling, no clear record of its disappearance from public memory. It stands now as both a relic and a riddle, a whisper from a distant era when stone spoke in languages of power, myth, and meaning that we are still struggling to fully understand. What ceremonies unfolded here, beneath the gaze of Amun and the blessings of the gnomes? What secrets were woven into its perfect geometry, its sacred proportions? And what other treasures of knowledge, art, and belief still lie buried beneath the sands of Karnak, waiting for patient hands and curious minds to bring them back into the light? The White Chapel of Senusret, eye endures, serene and luminous, a fragment of an ancient dream, and an invitation to wonder what else we have yet to rediscover in the long winding corridors of Egypt's forgotten past. As the gleaming stones of the White Chapel whisper of forgotten rituals and hidden meanings, we turn once more toward the raw material of Egypt's enduring mysteries, stone itself. Not the limestone blocks that shaped the familiar silhouettes of pyramids, but a harder, more enigmatic substance, granite, shaped with a precision that continues to baffle and inspire. On the Giza Plateau, and across other ancient sites in Egypt, scattered among the ruins, lies evidence of a technological mastery that seems almost out of place. Granite, one of the hardest natural stones on Earth, harder than iron, appears to have been worked, cut, and shaped by ancient hands with a level of accuracy and smoothness that challenges our understanding of what tools were available at the time. Among the most intriguing remnants are the core drill holes, perfectly circular impressions bored into blocks of red and black granite. Some of these cores, along with the discarded drill holes themselves, seem to display a spiral groove along the inner wall, as if a drill bit had been fed through the stone with a steady pressure and remarkable speed. How were these holes created? Mainstream archaeology suggests that the ancient Egyptians, armed with copper tools, sand, and patience, ground their way into stone through relentless manual labor. Using copper tubes with an abrasive slurry of quartz-rich sand, workers could slowly erode even the toughest granite over time. The theory is plausible, to a point. Experimental archaeology has shown that it is possible to bore into granite using these techniques, but the process is painstakingly slow and produces grooves very different from those observed on some of the ancient cores. Certain anomalies have led some researchers to question whether this traditional explanation is complete. The helical groove patterns found inside some drill cores appear too consistent, too deep, and too fast to match the expected results of copper and sand abrasion alone. Engineers studying these artifacts have suggested that the feed rate of the tool, the speed at which it cut into the granite, was greater than what simple hand-powered methods would likely achieve. Were the ancient Egyptians simply more skilled with primitive tools than we can easily imagine? Or is there an element of the story still missing? More speculative theories arise at the edges of this debate. Some propose that the builders possessed lost techniques, perhaps using methods that involved advanced abrasives, mechanical drills, or even unknown technologies powered by means we no longer understand. Others suggest that the ancient stonemasons may have harnessed natural phenomena, sonic vibration, high-pressure slurry systems, in ways that seem alien to our assumptions about Bronze Age capabilities. There is no evidence of machines, no ancient blueprints, no surviving mechanical tools from the Old Kingdom period. Yet the stones themselves, silent, massive, enduring, seem to hint at possibilities we have yet to fully grasp. The core drill holes are not isolated phenomena. Similar precision appears in other granite works throughout Egypt. The perfectly symmetrical sarcophagi of the Serapeum at Saqqara, the seamless fitting of massive granite blocks in temples and pyramids, the elegantly carved obelisks shaped with such mastery that even today replicating their precision would pose significant challenges. Was it simply a matter of extraordinary patience, enormous manpower, and generations of perfected craft? Or was there a deeper understanding of materials and forces that has since slipped through the cracks of recorded history? Mainstream archaeology tends toward caution, attributing the wonders of ancient engineering to a combination of ingenuity, persistence, and religious devotion. After all, a society capable of mobilizing thousands to build pyramids over decades might also develop ways to push simple tools to their very limits. But still, the mystery lingers. How did they maintain such uniformity across so many projects, over such vast expanses of hard stone? How did they move and position massive granite blocks, quarried miles away, with such accuracy and care? Why do some of the unfinished artifacts, like the giant obelisk at Aswan, display tool marks that suggest techniques more complex than simple pounding and grinding? No definitive answers have emerged. The stones refuse to yield their full story. Today, fragments of the core drills can still be seen, tucked away in museums and scattered across open-air sites. Visitors often pass them by without a second glance, unaware that these quiet artifacts might hold some of the most tantalizing clues to a lost chapter of human ingenuity. In the growing shadows of the pyramids, where the desert wind blows dust across the ancient plateau, the core-drilled granite pieces lie half-buried, enduring relics not just of a civilization, but of a mystery that time has yet to erase. Were the ancient Egyptians simply master craftsmen, operating at the peak of human endurance? Or was there once a knowledge, practical, spiritual, or technological, that allowed them to touch stone in ways we have since forgotten? The Giza Plateau remains a place of questions. Its monuments, its relics, and its silent stones continue to invite wonder, and to remind us that not all mysteries are written in language or myth. Some are carved into the very bones of the earth, waiting for those who are willing to look beyond what is known. And so, we are left to wonder. When we walk among these stones, what is it that we are truly seeing? The echoes of extraordinary craftsmanship, or the shadows of an understanding we have only begun to glimpse? As we leave behind the ancient drill cores scattered in the sun-baked stones of Giza, we step into a different kind of mystery, one not carved into granite or etched into monuments, but whispered through the myths and sacred texts of a civilization obsessed with origins. For the ancient Egyptians, history was not a straight line, but a cycle, a never-ending dance of creation, death, and rebirth. And at the very beginning of that cycle, before kings and dynasties, before temples and pyramids, there was a time unlike any other. It was called Zep Tepi, the first time. The ancient texts describe Zep Tepi as a golden age, when the gods themselves walked the earth. An era when divine beings ruled over Egypt, bestowing wisdom, order, and technology upon a nascent world. A time of perfect harmony, when the land was new, the heavens were close, and chaos had not yet taken root. This sacred epoch was central to Egyptian cosmology. In temple inscriptions at places like Heliopolis, Abydos, and Edfu, priests recorded mythic accounts of the creation of the world, tales of the primordial mound rising from the infinite waters of Nun, of Atum, the first god, bringing forth all that would exist. The gods, Shu and Tefnut, Geb and Nut, Osiris and Isis, emerged in succession, shaping the heavens, the earth, and all life between. But in some accounts, the echoes of Zep-Tepi hint at more than just a mythical beginning. They speak of a tangible age, a time when knowledge and power were greater than in the eras that followed. When the gods ruled not from distant heavens, but in physical form, from seats of power along the Nile. Was Zep-Tepi simply a mythological framework, an allegory of cosmic order triumphing over primal chaos? Or could it represent a memory, however distant and distorted, of an actual prehistoric civilization? A society advanced in ways now lost to history, remembered by the ancient Egyptians as the time when gods walked among men. Mainstream Egyptology interprets Zep-Tepi primarily as myth, a necessary part of Egypt's complex religious thought, which sought to anchor kingship and society in the divine. Each new pharaoh, upon ascending the throne, was ritually linked to the first time, symbolically restoring the perfect order that had been lost since the beginning. Yet some researchers, particularly those working at the fringes of traditional archaeology, propose alternative possibilities. Could the detailed references to Zep-Tepi found at multiple sites point toward a collective memory of real events? Events so ancient that they survived only as mythic fragments in the Egyptian consciousness. There are curious hints. The ancient priest Manetho, writing in the 3rd century BC, claimed that before the dynastic kings of Egypt, the land was ruled for thousands of years by divine and semi-divine beings. His king lists, though largely dismissed by modern scholars, describe reigns so impossibly long, tens of thousands of years, that they have often been relegated to the realm of fantasy. And yet, similar traditions of a golden age, an era of gods and titans, appear in the mythologies of other ancient cultures. The Sumerians spoke of the antediluvian kings, whose reigns stretched for millennia. The Greeks remembered a time of Olympian rule before the age of men. Could there have been a forgotten chapter of human history, one that ended long before the rise of dynastic Egypt, around 3000 BC? A chapter erased by cataclysm or other forces now lost to time. Speculative theories connect Zep-Tepi to the idea of a lost civilization, perhaps one devastated by the cataclysmic end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BC. Some propose that survivors of this ancient world seeded the early cultures of Egypt and elsewhere, carrying fragments of a once great knowledge that would later be mythologized as the deeds of gods. The Giza Plateau itself, with its unexplained architectural precision and monumental structures, is often drawn into these theories. Was the Great Sphinx, heavily weathered and mysterious in its own right, a relic of Zep-Tepi? Was it a marker left behind by an earlier civilization, later adopted and reinterpreted by the dynastic Egyptians? Mainstream scholars remain skeptical. Without solid archaeological evidence, without clear, datable artifacts or texts, such ideas must remain in the realm of speculation. Ancient civilizations, they argue, were capable of remarkable achievements without needing to invoke lost epochs or forgotten gods. And yet, the myth of Zep-Tepi endures. It lingers in the stones of Egypt's oldest temples, in the rituals of its kings, and in the very language the ancient scribes used to speak of time itself. A language where the past was not behind, but forever present, waiting to be restored. Today, standing amidst the ruins of Egypt's sacred sites, where worn hieroglyphs still catch the light of the setting sun, it is difficult not to feel the pull of that ancient dream. Was Zep-Tepi merely a cosmic allegory, a sacred mirror of how the Egyptians wished the world to be? Or was it a distant memory, distorted by millennia, wrapped in myth, of a time when the earth was indeed very different, and when the line between the human and the divine was far thinner than we can easily imagine? The first time remains, like so much of Egypt's legacy, a mystery carved into the bedrock of human imagination, inviting those who dare to look beyond the surface to ask what truly came before. As the distant echoes of Zep-Tepi linger in the mind, a golden age where gods and men once walked side by side, we return to the visible marvels left by those who followed, reaching upward in stone toward the sky. Few creations capture the ambition of ancient Egypt as purely as the obelisk. Tall, slender, and carved from a single piece of stone, these monumental pillars seem to defy gravity itself. Rising from temple courtyards and sacred plazas, obelisks pointed heavenward, their tips often sheathed in electrum to catch the first rays of the sun. They were, in every sense, bridges between the mortal world and the divine. And yet, behind their elegance lies a mystery that remains unsolved. How were the ancient Egyptians able to quarry, carve, transport, and erect such colossal monoliths with the tools and technology available to them over 3,000 years ago? The mainstream explanation, drawn from inscriptions, artistic depictions, and experimental archaeology, suggests that obelisks were carved directly from bedrock using dolerite pounders, hard stones used to chip away at the granite over months or even years of relentless labor. Once freed, the massive stones were dragged overland using wooden sledges and lubricated paths of mud or water to ease their passage. Finally, they were raised upright through a system of ramps, levers, and counterweights, aided by immense teams of workers. In theory, the process is possible. Experiments have shown that, with enough manpower and determination, blocks weighing several tons can indeed be moved and lifted using primitive means. Yet when faced with the actual scale and precision of Egypt's largest obelisks, doubts persist. How did workers carve out such enormous and delicate shapes without fracturing the stone? How were the surfaces polished to near mirror smoothness with such consistency? How were these giant monoliths lifted into vertical position without cracking under their own tremendous weight? Even moving the stones from Aswan, where the majority of obelisks were quarried, to their final locations sometimes hundreds of kilometers away, often by river across unpredictable currents, presents logistical challenges that are staggering by any standard. Mainstream Egyptologists emphasize the ingenuity of Egyptian engineering, the use of vast labor forces, carefully planned logistics, and a profound understanding of material properties honed over generations. They point to the cultural and religious importance of the task, which would have justified the years of labor and the mobilization of thousands of workers. Still, some researchers remain skeptical that the conventional explanations tell the whole story. The precision alone raises questions. Many obelisks were not simply functional objects. They were masterpieces of craftsmanship, inscribed with delicate hieroglyphs and positioned to align with astronomical or religious principles. The margin for error in raising such a monolith upright would have been virtually non-existent. A single miscalculation, a slight imbalance, and the obelisk could have shattered under its own weight, a catastrophe of wasted years and immense symbolic failure. More speculative theories suggest that the ancient Egyptians may have possessed knowledge or techniques now lost. Some propose the use of acoustic or vibrational technology, harnessing sound frequencies to move or soften stone, a notion hinted at in some ancient myths, but lacking direct evidence. Others suggest that forgotten mechanical devices, complex rigging systems, or even principles of physics not fully appreciated by modern researchers may have played a role. The unfinished obelisk at Aswan offers tantalizing clues. There, still attached to the bedrock, lies the abandoned project, a massive crack running through its body, a reminder that even the greatest builders met limits. The tool marks visible in the quarry show clear evidence of pounding and chiseling, but they also reveal techniques whose full implications are still debated. The uniformity of the trenches, the apparent smoothness of the detachment process, the precision of the outlines. Why would the Egyptians undertake such a monumental risk, carving such immense structures without guarantees of success? And why do so many of their completed obelisks exhibit such perfect balance and finish, despite the crude tools supposedly at their disposal? Today, many of Egypt's obelisks no longer stand where they were first raised. Through centuries of conquest, trade, and diplomacy, many have found new homes in Rome, Paris, London, Istanbul, and New York, scattered across the modern world like fragments of a forgotten ambition. Yet their original message of cosmic order, divine kingship, and human aspiration reaching for the heavens remains intact. Standing before one of these towering monuments, whether amid the ancient temples of Karnak or in the bustling plazas of Rome, one cannot help but feel a profound sense of wonder. How, truly, were they made? Was it simply the triumph of human determination over material impossibility? Or were there methods, understandings, practices, perhaps even entire schools of knowledge, that have vanished into the long sands of history? The obelisks endure, slender and silent, their pointed tips still stretching toward the sky. And they remind us that the mysteries of Egypt are not only found in the distant past, they stand before us still, waiting, inviting us to ask the questions their makers left unanswered. As the shadows of the towering obelisks stretch across the sands, whispering of a time when ambition and divinity were carved into stone, we now turn toward an altogether different mystery, one not built of enduring monuments, but of sudden collapse and forgotten enemies. Around 1200 BC, the ancient world shuddered. In the span of just a few decades, mighty kingdoms crumbled. Cities that had stood for centuries were burned and abandoned. Trade networks that once stitched together the Mediterranean unraveled into silence. Among the many theories surrounding this cataclysm, often called the Late Bronze Age collapse, one name surfaces again and again, wrapped in uncertainty and fear: the Sea Peoples. Who were these mysterious invaders? And what role did they play in the unraveling of Egypt's ancient order? The earliest clues lie in the battered records of the Egyptian New Kingdom, in the reigns of Merneptah and Ramses III. On temple walls at Karnak and Medinet Habu, vivid reliefs depict fierce battles between Egyptian forces and foreign warriors arriving by sea and land. Helmeted, armed with spears, their ships surging toward the Nile Delta like an unstoppable tide. Inscriptions speak of northerners coming from all lands, of enemies who laid waste to everything in their path. They describe entire confederations of peoples moving with their families, oxen, and possessions. A migrating force rather than a mere army, bent on conquest or survival, or both. Ramses III, one of Egypt's last great warrior pharaohs, claimed a decisive victory against the Sea Peoples around 1175 BC, preserving Egypt when so many neighboring civilizations fell. Yet, even Egypt was not left untouched. In the wake of these conflicts, the empire contracted, wealth diminished, and the stability of the new kingdom slowly eroded. But who exactly were the Sea Peoples? The Egyptian inscriptions list names like the Peliset, Cheka, Shekelesh, Denyen, and Weshesh, groups that scholars have tentatively linked to regions across the Mediterranean, perhaps the Aegean, Anatolia, Cyprus, and beyond. Some theories propose that these were displaced Mycenaeans, Sardinians, Sicilians, or even peoples from as far away as the Balkans. Mainstream historians suggest that a combination of environmental stress, drought, earthquakes, famine, and internal political upheaval across the late Bronze Age world may have triggered mass migrations and societal collapse. The Sea Peoples, in this view, were less the sole cause and more a symptom. Opportunistic raiders and refugees taking advantage of weakened states. Yet the mystery deepens. Why did these invasions occur with such suddenness and coordination? How could once powerful kingdoms like the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, and the Canaanite city-states fall so swiftly, leaving behind little more than charred ruins and broken tablets? More speculative theories propose that the Sea Peoples were not simply disorganized bands of migrants, but a highly organized coalition, possibly former mercenaries, displaced warriors, or even remnants of fallen empires seeking new lands to settle. Some have even suggested that a larger, yet unidentified civilization orchestrated these movements behind the scenes, driven by unknown forces or ambitions. In the Egyptian accounts, the Sea Peoples are depicted not merely as raiders, but as a dire existential threat, an unstoppable force that could only be turned back through divine favor and royal might. The reliefs at Medinet Habu show naval battles of astonishing complexity. Ships colliding, soldiers grappling with enemies in the water, Pharaoh Ramses III standing firm as the last line between chaos and survival. Yet no detailed accounts survive from the Sea Peoples themselves. No written language has been attributed to them, no cities securely identified as their homeland. Their story comes to us only through the eyes of those who fought against them, a one-sided record of a cataclysm whose full causes remain frustratingly out of reach. Today, archaeologists continue to unearth hints, traces of violent destruction layers in coastal cities, shifts in pottery styles across the Mediterranean, genetic studies of ancient remains. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding, but the full picture remains elusive. Were the Sea Peoples invaders or refugees, warriors or settlers, a symptom of a wider collapse or one of its primary causes? The mystery matters, for Egypt's confrontation with the Sea Peoples marked a turning point. Though Ramses III held the line, the new kingdom would never again reach the heights of its former glory. The centralized state weakened, regional governors grew more powerful, and the slow descent into the Third Intermediate Period began, a time of fragmentation, foreign influence, and fading imperial dreams. And so, standing before the battle-scarred walls of Medinet Habu, where the victories of Ramses III are carved in triumphant relief, one cannot help but feel the tension beneath the stone. A moment when an empire faced the abyss, and only just survived. The Sea Peoples remain a ghost army in the annals of history, a reminder that even the mightiest civilizations are vulnerable to forces they may not fully understand. Forces of migration, of environmental change, of human ambition and desperation. Forces that can reshape the world in a generation. What truly drove the Sea Peoples to set sail across a crumbling world? Were they agents of destruction, harbingers of a new age, or merely survivors of a catastrophe not of their own making? The waves of history have washed away the answers. Yet the questions linger, stirring among the ruins and sands, waiting, perhaps, for the day when the lost voice of the Sea Peoples will finally speak again. As the last echoes of the Sea Peoples' mysterious advance fade into the broader collapse of empires, our journey draws us back to one of Egypt's most iconic and enigmatic monuments, a sentinel older than memory, its gaze fixed eternally on the horizon. The Great Sphinx of Giza. Carved from the limestone bedrock of the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx looms with a quiet, timeless authority. Its colossal body, part lion and part human, stretches over 240 feet, and its battered face, once adorned with vivid pigments now long lost, watches over the desert as it has for thousands of years. Eroded by wind, sand, and the slow violence of time, the Sphinx stands not just as a monument, but as a riddle, a question carved in stone. Beneath this ancient guardian, some say, lies one of the greatest secrets of the ancient world. A hidden library, sealed away in a forgotten age. A vault of wisdom, known as the Hall of Records. The idea of a hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx is not a modern fantasy. Echoes of it can be found in ancient traditions, medieval Arab writings, and even the mysterious claims of early Western explorers. The notion gained particular attention in the late 20th century, as researchers, mystics, and independent archaeologists began to suggest that beneath the Sphinx, protected for millennia, lies a repository of ancient knowledge, records of a civilization far older than dynastic Egypt, perhaps even survivors of a lost world remembered only in myth. But is there any truth to this extraordinary idea? In the early 1990s, seismic surveys conducted around the Sphinx revealed anomalies beneath its paws and around its enclosure, areas where the bedrock appeared hollow or disturbed. These findings, though hotly debated, fueled speculation that cavities or chambers might exist beneath the monument. Could these spaces be natural fissures, ancient maintenance tunnels, or something far more profound? Mainstream Egyptologists urge caution. They argue that the anomalies are geological features, natural faults and fissures common in limestone formations. No artifacts, no texts, no direct evidence of a hidden library have ever been uncovered in the vicinity. Furthermore, traditional archaeology dates the construction of the Sphinx to the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BC. A timeline that does not suggest the existence of a lost pre-dynastic civilization. Yet, questions remain. The weathering patterns on the body of the Sphinx, for example, deep, undulating erosion often attributed to water, have led some researchers to propose a much older date for the monument's construction, possibly as far back as 7000 BC, when the Giza Plateau experienced periods of heavy rainfall. If true, this would push the Sphinx's origins far beyond the accepted history of ancient Egypt, into a time about which we know very little. Could the Sphinx have been inherited by the dynastic Egyptians? An ancient relic whose original purpose was forgotten, reinterpreted, and woven into their own cultural narratives? And if so, could it indeed conceal relics or records from a civilization long vanished? Speculative theories connect the Hall of Records to the myth of Atlantis, described by Plato as a mighty empire lost beneath the waves. Some believe that survivors of Atlantis, or another prehistoric civilization, fled to Egypt, bringing with them their knowledge of science, architecture, astronomy, and spirituality, knowledge that was then safeguarded beneath the sands. The Hall of Records, in this vision, would be a library of stone and gold, containing texts, devices, or relics that could rewrite the history of humanity itself. Yet no excavations beneath the Sphinx have conclusively revealed such a chamber. Permissions for deep drilling or intrusive exploration around the Sphinx are heavily restricted, both to preserve the monument and to protect the fragile limestone bedrock from further damage. The Sphinx, it seems, guards its secrets well. Today, standing in the shadow of the Sphinx, with the Great Pyramid rising behind it like a frozen sun, one feels the weight of ages pressing in. The air shimmers with heat, and the desert winds carry whispers, fragments of forgotten prayers, lost ambitions, ancient fears. The Sphinx's face, eroded yet serene, gazes eastward toward the rising sun, a symbol of rebirth, of eternal cycles. It invites questions, but offers no answers. Was the Sphinx a simple monument to royal power? A cosmic guardian? A relic of a civilization that memory has otherwise erased? Does a library of ancient wisdom slumber beneath its paws, or is the real mystery not buried in chambers of stone, but in the silence of our own forgotten past? Mainstream science demands evidence, and rightly so. Yet the persistent allure of the hidden library speaks to something deeper. A yearning not just for answers, but for connection to a world where knowledge was sacred, where the boundary between myth and history had not yet been drawn. In the end, the Sphinx remains what it has always been: a riddle, silent, patient, enduring. And as the sun sets over the Giza Plateau, casting long shadows across the desert floor, we are left to wonder, if the Hall of Records exists, will it ever be found? Or is it a dream, a story, a possibility, as eternal and as elusive as the gaze of the Sphinx itself? As we step away from the timeless gaze of the Sphinx and the whispered legends of hidden libraries beneath its paws, we find ourselves drawn deeper into the ancient world's most enduring enigma. Not of stone this time, but of words. Words carved into the very heart of Egypt's oldest tombs. Words meant not for the living, but for eternity. They are known today as the pyramid texts, hidden within the dark, narrow chambers of Egypt's earliest stone pyramids, in places like Saqqara, beneath the ruins of the Pyramid of Unas and his successors. These inscriptions are among the oldest known religious writings in human history. Dating back to around 2300 BC, they record spells, hymns, and incantations intended to guide the soul of the deceased pharaoh safely through the perils of the afterlife. Carved meticulously into the limestone walls, the pyramid texts seem to defy time itself. Their hieroglyphs, still crisp after more than 4 millennia, speak of a profound and complex vision of existence beyond death. A vision already fully formed, elaborate, and deeply symbolic. But how did these texts come to survive at all? And why, even at their earliest appearance, do they seem so complete, so sophisticated, as if drawn from a well of tradition much older than the pyramids themselves? The standard view holds that the pyramid texts evolved from oral traditions, priestly hymns and funerary spells passed down for generations before finally being committed to stone during the 5th and 6th dynasties. In this view, what survives in the pyramids is merely the first formal recording of a far older, previously unwritten religious tradition. Yet, questions remain. If these rituals were orally transmitted, how did they maintain such consistency and depth across centuries? The pyramid texts are not crude or tentative compositions. They display a mastery of language, theology, and cosmology that suggests a long and careful refinement. There is no hint of experimentation in their lines, no rough drafts or clumsy insertions, only a confident, intricate system of beliefs. Could it be that the pyramid texts were copied from even earlier written sources, now lost to the shifting sands of history? Might there have been pre-dynastic or early dynastic texts inscribed on perishable materials like papyrus, wood, or leather that did not survive the millennia, but once formed a vast corpus of sacred knowledge? Some scholars have speculated about the existence of earlier repositories of sacred texts, long destroyed by fire, flood, or the simple decay of time. Others wonder whether the sophistication of the pyramid texts points to an even deeper mystery: the inheritance of religious concepts from an unknown antecedent culture, now vanished from the archaeological record. There are curious hints within the texts themselves. They speak often of the primordial times, of gods and events long past, even in the imagination of the pyramid builders. They reference ancient cosmologies, lost temples, divine battles, and sacred landscapes that suggest the memory of an even earlier age, preserved through ritual and inscription. And the format of the pyramid texts is itself intriguing. Unlike later religious writings, which tell structured stories or offer systematic theology, the pyramid texts are fragmented, dreamlike, a series of invocations, declarations, and magical utterances. They seem to operate not through narrative, but through symbolic association, layered meaning, and sacred resonance. Were these texts meant merely to describe a path through the afterlife? Or were they encoding something deeper, a map of cosmic principles, a guide not only for the soul's journey, but for the maintenance of the entire universe's balance? More speculative theories have emerged around the pyramid texts. Some propose that they preserve fragments of lost scientific knowledge, encoded in mythological language. Others suggest they are remnants of an earlier system of consciousness, one in which language, ritual, and reality were more deeply intertwined than they are in our modern understanding. Mainstream Egyptology remains cautious. The pyramid texts are viewed primarily as theological documents, expressions of the Egyptian obsession with death, resurrection, and the eternal cycle of Ma'at, the divine order of the cosmos. Yet even among cautious scholars, the sheer depth and complexity of these early writings inspire wonder. How did such a sophisticated religious system arise seemingly fully formed at the dawn of Egyptian civilization? What earlier traditions fed into its creation? And what, if anything, has been lost in the long passage from the first time to the fading hieroglyphs of the last priestly scribes? Today, visitors who enter the Pyramid of Unas, stooping low through narrow corridors, stepping carefully across cracked and ancient floors, are confronted not by silence, but by the quiet murmur of eternity. The walls around them are alive with hieroglyphs, stars, serpents, thrones, feathers, and scepters, all speaking in a language of stone and spirit. The spells are not for the living. They are for the king who lies entombed within. A king who, in the ancient vision, did not die, but ascended into the sky, joining the imperishable stars. And yet, reading them now, one feels that they speak to us still, calling across 4,000 years, inviting us to glimpse a world where death was not an end, but a transformation, where language itself was a vessel of divine power. How did the pyramid texts survive when so much else has been lost? Were they the final echoes of a world even older than the stones into which they were carved? And what other sacred writings, what other songs of the soul, might still lie, buried beneath Egypt's silent sands, waiting for their moment to rise once more into the light? As we leave behind the enduring voices of the pyramid texts, those ancient spells carved deep into stone, our gaze turns upward, toward a different set of mysteries hidden within the pyramids themselves. This time, the riddle is not inscribed on the walls, but built into the very fabric of the Great Pyramid of Khufu. High within the structure's heart, inside the king's and queen's chambers, narrow shafts penetrate the massive limestone blocks. Some lead upward into darkness, others stop abruptly. Some are angled with meticulous precision toward specific points in the sky, while others seem to end inexplicably in solid stone. Their dimensions are precise, their orientation deliberate. And yet, after centuries of study, their true purpose remains unknown. What were these shafts for? What secrets might they hold? Mainstream Egyptology proposes that the shafts served practical or ritualistic functions. One theory suggests they were symbolic passageways, allowing the soul of the deceased pharaoh to ascend toward the stars, specifically toward the circumpolar constellations, known to the ancient Egyptians as the imperishable ones, or toward sacred stars like Sirius and Orion's belt. Indeed, the alignment of some shafts appears to support this idea. The northern shaft of the king's chamber points roughly toward Thuban, the North Star, around 2500 BC. The southern shaft aligns toward Orion's belt, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Meanwhile, shafts from the queen's chamber may have once pointed toward Sirius, linked to the goddess Isis. These stellar connections seem to echo themes present in the pyramid texts: the king's journey to the heavens, his transformation into an eternal star. And yet, questions persist. If the shafts were purely symbolic, Why build them with such extraordinary precision, using immense effort and planning? Why create passageways just wide enough to admit a small object, or perhaps only the spirit, when no one would ever see or use them in a physical sense? Adding to the mystery, some of the shafts were sealed with stone plugs. In 1993, an exploratory robot famously discovered a small door blocking one of the Queen's chamber shafts, adorned with two copper handles. Later probes found yet another door beyond the first, and what appeared to be a small cavity. Were these merely structural features, or were they hiding something? Artifacts, inscriptions, clues left by the pyramid builders? No treasure, no text, no definitive object has yet been found behind these mysterious barriers. Only more stone, more questions, more speculative theories offer bolder interpretations. Some suggest that the shafts were part of an elaborate ritual device, mechanisms through which the pharaoh's soul could be ritually launched toward specific stars at specific times. Others propose they served an astronomical purpose, functioning as observatories or alignment tools during construction, allowing priests to calibrate the pyramid's position relative to the heavens with astonishing accuracy. Still others entertain more exotic ideas, that the shafts were part of unknown technologies, now lost, perhaps even involving acoustic, energetic, or metaphysical properties. Could they have served as conduits, resonators, or amplifiers of forces no longer understood? Could the Great Pyramid have functioned not only as a tomb or symbolic monument, but as something far more complex? Such ideas remain on the fringes of accepted scholarship. Yet they persist, fueled by the undeniable engineering mastery of the ancient builders and the unresolved nature of the shafts themselves. There is also the enigma of access. The shafts are far too small for a human to traverse, measuring only about 8 inches square, suggesting that whatever they were intended for was not meant for physical passage. And yet, the precision of their construction, weaving through massive internal blocks at consistent angles, implies planning from the very beginning of the pyramid's design. Were they built for ceremony, for navigation, for protection, or for something beyond our current understanding? Today, the shafts remain largely inaccessible, their full paths mapped only by robots and remote cameras. Their secrets, if they hold any, are still locked behind ancient doors of stone, tantalizingly close, yet just out of reach. Standing inside the silent chambers of the Great Pyramid, feeling the immense weight of stone pressing from all sides, one is struck not only by the scale of the achievement, but by the deliberate mystery woven into every corridor, every block, every hidden shaft. The pyramid is not a simple structure. It is a layered creation, an interplay of matter and meaning, form and mystery. Were the shafts a testament to the Egyptians' understanding of the cosmos, a technical feature forgotten as centuries passed? Or are they echoes of a deeper, older knowledge, preserved in the heart of the world's most enduring monument? We may never know for certain. The Great Pyramid, like the desert that surrounds it, guards its truths fiercely, revealing only glimpses to those who seek. And so we are left to wonder, are the shafts silent corridors for the soul, delicate pathways for the stars, or are they still speaking, in a language we have yet to learn? As we leave behind the silent stone shafts deep within the Great Pyramid, conduits to the unknown, we shift our gaze to another enigmatic figure, whose story lingers like a half-remembered dream among the sands of Giza. Near the mighty pyramids of Menkaure and Khafra, nestled at the edge of the plateau, stands a peculiar structure. At first glance, it resembles a small stepped pyramid. Yet upon closer inspection, it defies simple classification. Weathered and broken, built of limestone blocks now bleached pale by the desert sun, it rises in a battered dignity above its surroundings. This is the tomb of Khentkaus I, a woman whose life and reign remain among the most intriguing mysteries of ancient Egypt. Her titles, carved into the stone of her tomb, are striking. She is called Mother of Two Kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, and in some inscriptions, even King of Upper and Lower Egypt herself, a royal epithet normally reserved for reigning pharaohs. But who exactly was Khentkaus? A powerful queen mother, a regent, a pharaoh in her own right, or the founder of a forgotten dynasty whose rule bridged a crucial but shadowy moment in Egypt's history? Historical evidence places Khentkaus I at the very end of the 4th dynasty, around 2500 BC, a period of political transition following the reign of Menkaure. Her tomb at Giza, designated LG 100, sits prominently, suggesting a status of extraordinary importance. The complex includes not only her tomb, but also a large mortuary temple, a causeway, and even the remnants of a small town for priests and workers, a complex more akin to that of a reigning king than of a queen consort. Her sarcophagus, now empty, bore no definitive royal insignia, and no complete historical record survives to clearly explain her role. Yet the clues left behind hint at a unique position, perhaps unlike any held by a woman before her. Mainstream Egyptologists propose that Khentkaus may have acted as regent for her young sons, assuming royal authority during their minority. This would explain the dual titles, both as Mother of Kings and as ruler in her own right. It would place her at the nexus between the 4th and 5th dynasties, a stabilizing figure during a time of uncertainty. Yet there are hints that her power may have been even greater. Some scholars argue that the iconography on her tomb, showing her wearing the royal uraeus serpent on her brow and seated on a throne, indicates that she was not merely a caretaker of power, but its living embodiment. If so, Khentkaus as-Sarai may have been a pharaoh, a king in the full sense of ancient Egyptian understanding, blending female and male aspects of rulership in a unique and profound way. And what of the dynasty she helped usher into being? The 5th dynasty, following her presumed regency or reign, marks a shift in Egyptian religious and political life. It was during this period that the cult of Ra, the sun god, rose to prominence, and that the construction of sun temples became as significant as the building of pyramids. The pyramid texts, those profound funerary spells we explored earlier, would soon be inscribed in stone. Was Khentkaus a catalyst for these transformations? Was her reign, brief and poorly remembered, a turning point between Egypt's ancient kingship, rooted in divine mysteries, and the more codified, solar-centered theology that would shape its future? Speculative theories reach further still. Some suggest that Khentkaus's rule, and her unusual tomb, preserve echoes of even older traditions, remnants of a matriarchal or dual-gendered kingship reaching back to Egypt's pre-dynastic past. Others propose that her reign reflects political struggles and hidden power dynamics that the official histories sought to obscure, struggles in which women could, briefly, claim the full mantle of divine kingship. There are also more subtle mysteries surrounding her tomb itself. The structure shows signs of having been altered during or after its construction. Some scholars argue that it began as a stepped mastaba, the traditional flat-roofed tomb, before being transformed into something resembling a small pyramid. Was this transformation symbolic? An attempt to elevate her status from queen to king? Or does it suggest a shift in her perceived role during her lifetime, from regent to sovereign? No definitive answers survive. Today, the tomb of Khentkaus I stands largely abandoned by tourists, overshadowed by the monumental grandeur of the nearby pyramids. Sand drifts through the broken corridors, filling the spaces where priests once tended sacred fires, and where, perhaps, the rituals of kingship were reimagined in a new and daring form. Standing before her ruined complex, it is easy to feel the strange gravity of her story. A life lived in the margins of recorded history, yet pivotal to the fate of a civilization. Who was Kent Kaus, truly? A mother, a regent, a queen, a king? Or was she something else? A bridge between ages, between divine and mortal power, between the remembered and the forgotten? The broken stones of her tomb offer no final answers, only the lingering presence of a woman who, in a time of uncertainty, seized the reins of Egypt's destiny, and whose legacy, like the desert itself, refuses to be fully buried. And so we are left to wonder, what other stories lie hidden beneath the shifting sands of Giza? What other rulers, other dynasties, have been lost to time? Their names faded, but their impact still echoing across the silent plains. As the story of Kent Kaus fades back into the sands of forgotten history, our journey remains anchored on the Giza Plateau. But now, we turn our gaze not toward the monuments of human ambition, but to the land itself. Beneath the towering pyramids, beyond the crumbling mastabas and silent tombs, the Giza Plateau holds secrets far older than any inscription or carved stone. Secrets written not by the hand of kings, but by the forces of nature, and perhaps, according to some, by civilizations far more ancient than we have ever imagined. The ground at Giza tells a story, if one knows how to listen. Walking across the plateau, one notices it immediately. The strange, undulating patterns etched into the bedrock, the deep fissures, the unexpected erosion, the curious layering of different types of limestone. In some areas, the stone is worn smooth and rounded, as though shaped not by desert winds, but by water, flowing, persistent, ancient. The most famous of these anomalies surrounds the Great Sphinx. Its body, carved directly from the bedrock, displays deep vertical fissures and a rounded, scalloped texture, signs that some geologists, most notably Dr. Robert Schoch, have argued could only be caused by prolonged exposure to heavy rainfall. But rainfall, in such quantities, has not touched the Giza Plateau since the end of the last ice age, somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 BC. Far earlier than the conventional date for the construction of the Sphinx, around 2,500 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. If the erosion patterns are indeed the result of ancient rains, then the Sphinx, and perhaps other elements of the plateau, might be thousands of years older than previously believed. A remnant of a civilization forgotten by history, standing sentinel through the slow decay of time. Mainstream Egyptology remains cautious. Most scholars attribute the erosion around the Sphinx and other structures to a combination of wind, sand, and localized water runoff from flash flooding. They argue that natural processes, acting over thousands of years even after construction, could account for much of the observed weathering. And yet, doubts linger. Why do nearby structures, carved from the same limestone, show vastly different erosion patterns? Why does the enclosure wall around the Sphinx show signs of deep water scouring, while nearby tombs and causeways, supposedly built later, exhibit far less damage? Why are there distinct geological fault lines, odd depressions, and isolated pockets of erosion scattered unevenly across the plateau? Adding to the puzzle are other features: vast unexplored chambers detected through ground-penetrating radar, anomalies beneath the Sphinx and around the Great Pyramid, and uneven strata suggesting massive shifts or disturbances long before the rise of Egypt's dynasties. Some researchers propose that the Giza Plateau may have been a sacred site for far longer than we realize, a place of reverence and construction, even in pre-dynastic times, later adapted and reinterpreted by the pharaohs we know from history. More speculative theories reach further still. Some suggest that the ancient builders, whether early Egyptians or an even older culture, deliberately chose the Giza Plateau not merely for its prominence or location, but for its unique geological properties. The bedrock beneath Giza, with its layers of limestone interspersed with harder bands of dolomite, creates a natural resonance. Could it be that the plateau was selected as a site of spiritual or energetic significance? A place where earth and sky, stone and star, converged in ways now lost to modern understanding. Others propose that the geological anomalies are not entirely natural, that ancient builders may have reshaped the land itself, carving and altering the bedrock to suit purposes we can only guess at. Pathways, platforms, pits, and trenches cut into the living rock suggest a vision far larger than mere tomb construction. Were these features simply practical quarries and construction zones? Or were they part of a larger sacred landscape, encoded with meanings forgotten over the passing of millennia? Today, many of these geological features remain unexplored or only partially studied, shielded by shifting sands, modern development, and the understandable caution of archaeologists tasked with preserving one of humanity's greatest heritage sites. Yet, the questions persist. When we walk the Giza Plateau, we are not simply stepping through a man-made necropolis. We are walking atop a geological palimpsest, a layered record of earth, climate, water, and human ambitions stretching back into prehistory. Is it possible that the story of Giza begins not with Khufu, Khafre, or Menkaure, but with a civilization lost to memory, whose first monuments were carved not in glory, but in reverence for forces older and more powerful than kings? Or are the anomalies we see merely the patient, indifferent work of time, the slow shaping of rock by wind, water, and gravity, with no secret messages carved into their forms? The answers, if they exist, lie deep beneath the limestone and sand, guarded by the same implacable silence that has shrouded the Giza Plateau for thousands of years. And so we are left to wonder, does the land itself remember a story we have forgotten? And if we listen closely enough, might it still whisper its ancient truths to those willing to hear, as the winds brush across the strange geological scars of the Giza Plateau, whispering of a time long before the familiar rhythms of dynastic rule? Our journey turns southward, toward another mystery, hidden not beneath stone monuments, but beneath fields, rivers, and the slow drifting of time. There once stood a city, a capital of kings, a heart of power and ambition, during one of Egypt's greatest periods of resurgence. Its name was Ich-Taui, Caesar of the Two Lands. Today, its precise location remains lost. Ich-Taui was founded by Pharaoh Amenemhat I, the first ruler of the 12th dynasty, around 1975 BC. Following the chaos of the First Intermediate Period, a time when Egypt had fractured into rival factions, Amenemhat sought to reunify the kingdom, to restore order, and to forge a new era of stability and prosperity. His solution was bold: a new capital, built not in the shadow of old centers like Memphis or Thebes, but in a fresh place, strategically chosen to control both Upper and Lower Egypt. Ancient texts mention Ich-Taui by name. It was described as a thriving city, a place of administration, culture, and military strength. From here, the kings of the Middle Kingdom directed vast building projects, expanded Egypt's borders, and established a new golden age. The 12th dynasty is remembered for its powerful rulers, sophisticated literature, and enduring monuments, all of which owe their genesis to the decisions made in Ich-Taui. And yet, unlike Thebes, Memphis, or even forgotten cities like Tanis, Ich-Taui has never been found. How could the capital of such a critical period simply vanish? Most scholars agree that Ich-Taui must lie somewhere near the modern town of Lisht, between the Fayum oasis and the Nile's edge. The pyramids of Amenemhat I and his son, Senusret-Er, are located at Lisht, suggesting the royal necropolis lay close to the city. Tombs of nobles and officials, court members from the early 12th dynasty, have also been unearthed in the region. But the city itself, its palaces, its avenues, its heart, remains hidden. Some suggest that the Nile's ancient course has shifted since the Middle Kingdom, swallowing the remains of Ichtawi under layers of silt and farmland. In this theory, the city's ruins lie beneath fields still tilled today, buried by centuries of annual floods and human activity. Others propose that Ichtawi was never a traditional city of monumental stone, but rather a largely mud-brick settlement, one designed for functionality, not eternal survival. If so, erosion, agriculture, and time could have erased its surface traces almost entirely. Yet the mystery remains larger than mere disappearance. If Ichtawi was the hub of a revitalized empire, where are its administrative archives, its inscriptions, its remnants of daily life? Why, in an age known for meticulous record-keeping, does so little physical evidence of the city survive? Speculative theories inevitably arise. Some have proposed that Ichtawi's location was deliberately kept secret, even in ancient times, a defensive measure against the lingering threats of internal revolt and external invasion. Perhaps its memory was suppressed by later dynasties, jealous of the Middle Kingdom's legacy, or simply forgotten in the relentless reshaping of Egypt's political map. Others wonder whether traces of Ichtawi have been found, but misunderstood, mistaken for other settlements, their true significance lost beneath layers of mistaken chronology and shifting sands. Archaeologists continue to search. Remote sensing technology, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite imaging offer new hope that the ancient city might yet be located. Subtle anomalies beneath the farmland around Lisht suggest complex layers of human activity, hinting at buried structures just beyond our reach. And with every discovery, a fragment of pottery, a buried wall, a faded inscription, the story grows richer, but no less mysterious. Standing in the fields south of Cairo today, there is little to suggest that this was once the seat of kings. The land is flat and fertile, laced with irrigation canals, dotted with small villages. The Nile glimmers in the distance, just as it did 4,000 years ago, winding its slow, unbroken course through history. Yet beneath the soil, the ghosts of Ichtawi may still sleep, a city where pharaohs once planned conquests and great works, a place where scribes penned some of Egypt's most enduring literature, tales of loyalty, betrayal, wisdom, and sorrow, a place where a reunited Egypt once beat with new, hopeful vigor, only to fade quietly into the shadows of time. What might we learn if Ichtawi were found? What forgotten chapters of Egyptian history, political struggles, religious reforms, daily life, might rise from the earth to speak once more? And perhaps more intriguingly, what deeper reasons led to its vanishing? Was Ichtawi merely a casualty of time and the river's changing course? Or does its disappearance reflect a more deliberate erasure, a lost memory of political shifts, ancient fears, or cycles of rebirth and forgetting that have always shaped the Nile's long history? The fields remain silent for now, but the past has a way of stirring, sometimes when we least expect it. And so, as we look out across the flat, sunlit plain, where Ichtawi once thrived, we are left to wonder, is the lost city truly gone? Or is it waiting, just beneath the surface, ready to share its story with those still willing to listen? As we leave behind the lost avenues and forgotten courts of Ichtawi, our journey turns from the vanished cities of Egypt's golden past to an artifact that continues to captivate the world. A face fashioned from gold, yet cloaked in questions that refuse to fade. The golden death mask of ancient Egypt, shimmering, haunting, eternal, remains one of the most iconic symbols of a civilization obsessed with the afterlife. Most know of the mask of Tutankhamun, with its delicate craftsmanship and serene, youthful features. Discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, resting upon the mummy of the boy king, it quickly became the emblem of ancient Egyptian splendor. Yet beneath the surface of this breathtaking relic, mysteries linger. Mysteries that suggest the mask may not have been crafted for Tutankhamun at all. The face, with its inlaid lapis lazuli eyebrows, quartz eyes, and perfect proportions, seems to radiate divinity. Every detail, from the intricate hieroglyphs on the back to the sacred imagery on the broad collar, speaks of meticulous artistry. It was meant to transform the wearer from mortal king to Osiris himself, god of the dead and lord of eternity. But careful study has revealed troubling inconsistencies. For one, the mask's construction tells a tale of adaptation. Scientific analyses, including X-ray fluorescence scans, show that the mask is made from two different types of gold. A lighter shade for the face, and a darker, more reddish gold for the broad collar and chest. This suggests that two separate pieces were joined together, perhaps repurposed for a burial it was not originally intended for. More curious still are the inscriptions. Along the shoulders of the mask, a cartouche, a royal name enclosed within an oval, identifies the wearer as Nebheperure, the throne name of Tutankhamun. But close examination reveals signs that the cartouche may have been altered. Tiny differences in the engraving style, the positioning of hieroglyphs, and the depth of the carving hint that the original name was removed and replaced. Who, then, was the mask first made for? One compelling theory points to Tutankhamun's mysterious predecessor, the enigmatic pharaoh Smenkhkare. Little is known about Smenkhkare, who ruled briefly during the chaotic final years of the Amarna period, a time when Egypt was rocked by religious upheaval under Akhenaten's monotheistic reforms. Smenkhkare's reign is a ghostly one. Few monuments, few artifacts, few traces at all. Could the golden mask, with its refined, mature features, have been crafted for a different ruler? A king forgotten by official histories, only to be reassigned to the young Tutankhamun at a time of political necessity. Other scholars propose that the mask may have originally belonged to a woman, perhaps Queen Neferneferuaten, a possible female successor to Akhenaten, sometimes identified with Nefertiti herself. The soft contours of the face, the pierced ears, unusual for male depictions, and the more delicate proportions suggest a subtle feminine quality, though interpretations vary. If so, the mask's story becomes even more layered. A royal artifact fashioned in the twilight of a collapsing dynasty, repurposed in haste to honor a boy king whose unexpected death demanded swift, sacred preparation. Mainstream Egyptology acknowledges the anomalies, but many maintain that even if the mask was adapted, it was done so carefully, preserving the sacred rites surrounding royal burial. To the ancient Egyptians, ensuring the king's safe passage into the afterlife mattered more than the precise origin of the funerary goods. Yet the idea that Egypt's most famous artifact might be a relic of a forgotten king or queen adds a deep, poignant mystery to its beauty. It also raises broader questions about Tutankhamun's tomb itself. The tomb, though famously rich, was small and hastily prepared for a king. The burial assemblage contained objects that bore signs of reuse: canopic jars, furniture, jewelry, some of which may have been originally made for other royals. Was Tutankhamun's death sudden, his tomb cobbled together from available items meant for predecessors who had fallen into political disgrace? And if so, how much of what we believe about this young pharaoh's burial, and by extension, the era's art, religion, and politics, is shaped by these hurried substitutions? Standing before the golden mask today, in the Egyptian Museum, or soon in the Grand Egyptian Museum, one is struck not only by its radiant craftsmanship, but by the sense of layers hidden beneath its surface, layers of history, identity, and forgotten ambition. The mask is a masterpiece of art, yes, but it is also a puzzle. Who first gazed out from behind that immortal visage? Was it truly Tutankhamun, the fragile boy king thrust onto history's stage, Or was it a shadowy ruler lost to the shifting sands of political upheaval? A king without a kingdom? A queen without a future? The gold speaks, but it does not reveal all. It gleams in the museum lights, reflecting our faces back to us, daring us to see not just beauty, but mystery. And so we are left to wonder, what other treasures of Egypt, what other symbols of eternity, carry within them stories still waiting to be uncovered? How many faces have we mistaken for others? How many histories rewritten by the hands of time, necessity, and survival?